Oh, hello there, good people. Hi, it's Jason with Green Country Agroforestry. It's Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. for 2022. And of course, that means it's time for yet another live stream. How's everybody doing out there tonight? Hey, guess what? I found this humorous. So I see we got Mary in, we got Sassafras Red in, Bake a Leg and Let's Dig It Homestead is in. Hello, Melody. All right, what was the topic today? The topic today was why are preppers not serious about prepping? I'm probably phrasing that incorrectly. Why are prepper channels not serious about prepping? Mary says who? You? Nah. They seem to be preparing for the end, like that it's all over. I think they'd be getting ready for a new beginning instead, just saying, right? Sassafras Red said, if it's ending, shouldn't they be happy? Oh, cold and wet up there with a lot of wind, huh? We had that a couple of days ago. All right. I'd like to start out first by talking about panning for gold. I know that seems weird and a little bit off topic, but bear with me. It's going somewhere. Oh, this picture behind me, that's New Orleans after Katrina. Like anybody could have never known that an area that was below sea level might wind up getting flooded. All right. So panning for gold. You may not realize this, but if you go out to just about any creek or stream, naturally occurring creek or stream in the country here in North America, and you search for it, you'll be able to find gold. Now, the places where you look are places where the stream is coming down, where the stream's coming downstream, and it comes up to get some obstruction of some sort, and so it has to go around one way or the other. Whenever this happens and it turns, the velocity of the water drops, okay? So the velocity of the water drops, and since the water's not going quite so fast, the things that was carrying along with it, if they're a little bit heavier than is necessary to be picked up and carried along whenever the water makes that turn, makes that curve or oxbow, they wind up falling out. And they'll wind up getting trapped underneath rocks, particularly places where there's bedrock. Usually that obstruction is some sort of rock outcropping, right? And so gathering up at this point where the river bends, as the water velocity changes speed, you'll find gold stuck in the crevices there. Now, it may not be a lot. You could wind up spending an entire day working at finding gold and find a little bit. And whenever you finally get it all separated out and assayed, you'll discover that you probably would have made more money if you'd stood inside of a drive-through window asking people if they wanted fries with that. But there will be gold there. So a lot of times I like to go out and look at what other channels are doing and just sort of eavesdrop out at them, so to speak. And it's a little bit like panning for gold. A lot of time I'm spending a lot of hours just sitting there watching and going, okay. Is there something I can use here? And occasionally I find a little nugget, right? And hopefully whenever you're watching my videos, you find a few little nuggets along the way. I'm not saying that every video that I do is going to be something that you watch and go, wow, this is life-altering information. I'm so glad I watched this video. Sometimes you may watch it and just go, okay, whatever. And that's okay. That's fine. I think a lot of videos that we make are going to be in that category. In the future, I'm hoping to not do so many videos just for the sake of having a video out for the week. You may have noticed that the number of videos I'm producing has dropped off considerably recently, but hopefully the quality of information is going to be increasing along with that. So going forward, fewer videos, but better quality videos, hopefully stuff that will make you glad that you clicked on it to watch it instead of scratching your head and saying, well, I guess I wasted my time here. So anyway, as I was saying, earlier today, I was out auditing channels and a bunch of prepper channels popped up in my feed for some reason. I said, okay, well, I haven't watched this one. I haven't watched this one. I haven't watched this one. Let's go look and see what they're doing. One of them was having a live stream that was really exciting. I think there was somebody had 50,000 subscribers or so. So I got in there and they were talking about events. And it's not unusual that somebody with a prepping channel is going to be talking about current events. And since I don't watch the regular news, sometimes watching a prepper gets me my news because they'll mention something that's going on that I would otherwise not really be aware of. Now, they're doing it because they're trying to encourage people to get started on prepping, get them to be aware that there's stuff going on, and that there's a role to that. I don't do a whole lot of that on this channel. This really isn't a prepping channel. It is, but it isn't. It's also not really a gardening channel, although I do market it as a gardening channel. In all actuality, this is more of a liberty and freedom channel. It's just there are certain aspects that you need to accomplish before you can achieve liberty and freedom. And food independence and independence in a variety of other ways is one of the ways that you can be in a position where people who are attempting to influence you, you can turn and look at them and say, no, I'm not going to go along with your BS agenda. You have to have the freedom that comes from independence to be able to do that. So that's why we're here. All right. So I'm watching 50,000 subscribers this channel has. I think it's 500-600 people in the chat. It's not too busy, which is nice because this is the point where you can be in the chat and you can be holding a conversation with somebody else, and the comments aren't flying by so quickly that you just can't keep track of anything. And I would drop a few comments in here every now and then, whenever it's appropriate to the current conversation. Things like, if you take some of that money that you would have spent on rice and beans and you were to buy a tree with it and plant that tree, you're going to have a steady supply of food, and also it's going to reduce the temperature a bit around your domicile, and whenever you harvest the wood from it, you'll have fuel for your fireplace, things of that nature. And this particular host, I know he's seeing the comments because he's reading off the comment above it, he's reading off the comment below it, but he's not reading off what I said. And a little bit further on, I have the opportunity to once again introduce a little bit of common sense into the conversation. It's on topic, and once again, reads the comment above it, reads the comment below it, doesn't read what I said. I started to get a little bit agitated about this time because, this guy is supposed to be interested in helping people get prepared for emergencies. And I'm dropping some really good information on him, and he's just not even drawing attention to it at all. And it occurred to me, I don't think this guy is really serious about prepping. I think he wants to do something else. I think what he's doing is trying to get people scared, for one thing, and out of their fear, prompt them to go look through his affiliates so that he can get money from clicks and buys and stuff like that, so he can get that extra money. And I looked at some of the affiliates, and it's really expensive gear, a lot of expensive gear. And this wasn't the only channel that I looked at that had this sort of dynamic going on. There are a lot of things that you can purchase, lots of gear that you can purchase that is of the survival nature. It's also the camping and bushcraft nature. Incidentally, if you're doing bushcraft and somebody wants to show you how you can start a fire with a ferro rod and a striker and some sort of fuel source that they bought from a store, we have those. I've got one of them in my pocket right here. It's a really good one, right? If you want to show somebody some real bushcraft, show them how to build a bow drill. That way they'll have a way to start a fire even if everything else fails. All right, I was getting off topic. So, panning for gold. Sometimes you find nuggets. One of the things that you can purchase, where did I put these things? One of the things that you can purchase are these emergency medical kits, right? All kinds of antibiotics and other stuff. And I'm sure they're good quality and might help you out in the situation, but I've got something here that's even better than having something that you can use a couple of times and it runs out. This particular plant here let me turn off the green screen. You can't see it, right? It's an invisible plant. Wow, check it out. Invisible plant. Let's turn the green screen off real quick here. All right. There we go. So here we go. This particular plant, I just pulled this up out of the ground before I came in. It's a little bit wilty. But this is oregano. And at zone 7, you want to keep this on the south side of your house. Otherwise, it's not going to survive very well. Balm also you can grow zone 7 and higher, and it doesn't have to be on the south side of the house. It's just not as good for cooking with. But both of them have a component in them called thymol. Thymol is one of the 4 ingredients that you find in Listerine antiseptic, which is really good for killing infections. Topically speaking, you apply it topically, it kills the infection, works really well. And you could have a stash of some sort of antiseptic in your basement that you're keeping for emergencies, and that's good. I mean, it's good to have supplies on hand. It's even better to have supplies in the ground growing so you can constantly replenish your supply. Here's another one. This isn't oregano, though. This one is peppermint. Oh man, that smells so good. Also peppermint combined with the thymol and oregano put together. Very potent antiseptic. Recently, I was doing some of that work. You remember the Water for Every Garden video, right? Well, I wound up scraping my leg, and it got infected. Pus coming up. It was about that far away from the wound. And ordinarily, you might be thinking, wow, it's time to go see the doctor, get some antibiotics, that sort of thing. Instead, we washed it off. Well, I washed it off, ripped the scab off, which is a little bit painful, and I applied oil of oregano and peppermint oil to the wound, wrapped it up so that it wouldn't get reinfected. And I'm happy to say that I'm not going to lose my leg. And I didn't need to go to the doctor, and it didn't require an expensive box full of antibiotics. Now, I'm not knocking having antibiotics around. They can be useful, but it might be more useful to know how to go about making your own antibiotics and growing and producing your own medicinal herbs like these. Having a stash of medicine, having a stash of anything is not a bad idea. But these supplies run out. Let me ask you this question. What is the difference between having a stash of supplies in your basement that's limited, that's going to run out, that can be raided by people with hostile intentions, stolen from you, and having a supply of, having a stock of supplies at the local grocery store? It's a little bit better to have your own handy right there in the basement where you personally can defend them. But in all actuality, it's not that much better. What is much better is having a stock or a supply that constantly replenishes itself. You see, then it doesn't matter whether your emergency state is something that occurred for a day, a week, a month, a year, 10 years, or a lifetime. You're always prepared, and you're prepared to continue on without the grocery store if it becomes necessary. Now, I've noticed that a lot of these prepper channels are geared towards helping people get to a point where they can hang on for a little while when things fall apart. They can hang on for a little while, a couple of months, maybe even as long as a year. The situations, of course, that they're pitching, if they're to be believed, are kind of akin to we're in a big toilet bowl, it's getting flushed. And the solutions that they have, the plan that they have is to help you hang on to the rim for a little while. I'm thinking if they were serious about prepping, we should be talking about how to get out of the bowl. Oh, incidentally, what's one of those crises that we've got coming up? A lack of fertilizer? What's this here? Does anybody know what this is? This little plant? I picked it out of the same spot where I found the mint and the oregano. Yeah, that's a clover. So not only am I growing my own medicine, I'm also growing my own fertilizer. All right. Let me turn the screen back on because it's awfully green back here. Do we want the depressing background or something a bit more cheerful? Let's go with cheerful. This one's cheerful too. I like this one. That's another medicinal plant behind me there. Now, at the moment, you can't grow this plant legally in the United States of America. I know, it's sad. They won't let you do it. Well, actually, you can grow it. I'm sorry. I'm misspeaking and giving you bad information. You can grow this plant. This one up here, right behind me. There, that one. Yep, that's a poppy. You can grow it legally. You just can't harvest the alkaloid from it for pain relief. Right? If I had a choice between having poppies to rely upon for pain relief in case of emergencies, maybe one of those places where I might need to do some surgery, somebody got gored by a bull or tusked by a boar or accidentally got shot or something of that nature, deliberately got shot, you never know. Having something to kill pain, having something to eliminate infection, having something to stop bleeding. Incidentally, somebody mentioned yarrow. We have that growing outside too. I just didn't bring any in. It wasn't in the same patch. Yarrow is a styptic, as a fever reducer. Wonderful plant. Here's another one. I don't have any growing at the moment, but I got the seeds right here. This little tiny packet. Mullein seeds are in this packet, which is interesting. It's used for that's for upper respiratory conditions. It's also nice, soft, and soothing on the skin, and is a wonderful substitute for that thing that people were panicking about just a few months ago. Hi, kitty. Bye, kitty. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I forget to feed you again? Forgot to give her a kibble. All right. So mullein, great for wiping the bum with. But once again, most prepper channels are not talking about this sort of thing. They're interested in selling you something. Now, I'm not saying that having gear is bad. Having gear is wonderful. Having good gear, having the appropriate kind of gear, now that's important. Let me show you an example of something that was not good gear that I followed an affiliate link to get. This is a couple of years back. I followed an affiliate link to get this. This is a manual water pump. It's made out of plastic, right? And wasn't too expensive. It's like $45, $50 back then. This was what, 2008, 2009, I think, whenever we got this. Long time ago. In any case, I hooked it up, and this thing has a discharge pipe here that's about 1.5 inches or 2 inches. Inch and a half discharge pipe. And I have had it rigged up so I could go ahead and pump the water up out of our sand spike. We got a sand spike, 1/4 inch, easy to install, guys. It's really easy. Sand spike goes on a 1/4 inch piece of galvanized pipe. You drive it into the ground. You just keep on adding couplings and drive it down until you've got water, and you're done. Then you attach a pump. We thought this was going to do the job. I started pumping it. Okay, yeah, we got water out of it. It's great. Okay, this is good. This is good. But I needed to get it to run through a filter. We had a filter set up for it, and eventually bring it up to a storage tank. We have a 350-gallon storage tank. So I hooked up all the pipes and everything, got it set up, and it's like, all right, here we go. We got it primed, and I started pumping, and the very first thing that happened is the handle snapped off. Because this is not made for people with serious needs for water. This is made for somebody that wants to think that they've done something in the self-reliance area. And if they get into a really serious problem and have this sort of thing, they're going to be in trouble. So I did what any responsible person should do at that time. I got busy looking. Said, okay, somewhere out there's somebody that makes manual water pumps for people that rely upon manual water pumps. Because I'll tell you what, if I need it, I'm going to need it, right? I mean, it's going to be a really serious need. Water is a serious need. One of the most important things you can have, water. So I searched, and I came across a company that is not an affiliate, and I'm not going to get paid for mentioning them, but I may as well mention them because they sell good stuff. It's called Lehman's. They sell to the Amish. The Amish kind of need to have a reliable water pump. So Lehman's out of Pennsylvania makes, or at least markets, very good cast iron body, solid, dependable manual pumps. And I found one that had a garden hose attachment on it, built-in check valve, right? Built-in check valve, so you can open it and close it, open and close it, so you can keep your prime and then drop it whenever it's freezing out and reprime it whenever you need to, that sort of thing. Very useful. You don't want your pump freezing on you. I've got a story about that to tell you in a minute, but I'll get to that here in a minute, a little bit later. It had this hose attachment, a faucet attachment, so you could screw a garden hose onto it. Now, you're probably not going to use it like this, right? Pumping it with the garden hose. The pump's over here, the garden hose goes to wherever the garden hose is going. But it's very useful for being able to transport that water to a different spot where you need it. And you can then use it to fill up your buckets, your catchments, whatever you need to do. For example, that 300-gallon tank. It can lift that water up out of the ground and carry it to where I have that 300-gallon tank. And from there, I've got it on tap, and I can just open up the tap and run the water wherever I need it. Very, very, very useful. I've got it featured in that particular pump. It appears, it's not really featured, it appears in this next video coming out. I believe I'll release that on Friday, which is setting up a worm bin whenever you don't have access to a worm farm. How to capture wild worms for vermicompost. Fun stuff. Anyway, I'll show you that pump on Friday. This past week, because I was going to be doing that video, I went over and checked the pump, made sure everything was in order, and discovered, oh my, it doesn't have a prime. The seals have dried out. So I had to go and grab some Vaseline and take apart the pump and put the Vaseline on the seals. They're made out of leather, by the way, and I have spare seals. So should I wind up needing to replace the seals, all I have to do is go and take the spares that I've already got, use those as a template, cut out fresh seals, and put the new seals in, and we're good to go. All right. Now, Mary is saying PVC pipe lasts forever, well, with no rust. Well, it lasts for a good long time anyway. It may as well be forever, and it doesn't rust. We use a lot of PVC. Where was that? Oh, yes. So, having a good supply of water, your own supply of water, very important. But I haven't seen a whole lot of people with prepping channels that will, oh, this is weird. Okay. I'm going to have to turn off the green screen again. That will show you a good source to get a water pump. They'll show you something, but not really necessarily anything good. All right. Hang on a second. Let's turn the background off again because this has got some green stuff on it. All right. So the first one of these I got. Does anybody recognize what this is right off the bat? Anybody out there have your own well? Run off of well water? Usually you'll have these attached somewhere along the line with a pressure tank, possibly something that'll allow you to off-gas any sulfurous odors that might be on your well water, and you most likely would have this connected to an electric pump. Does anybody recognize what this is? Yeah, you can put this in an RV too. John says filter. Mary says RV filter. This one's actually not a carbon filter. This one is just a regular old sediment filter, and it takes these. This is a cartridge for it. You know, these are cheap. I've got a whole bunch of them, but one of the cool things about this filter is, you see what it's made out of? This is regular old cotton cordage just wrapped around it. So if you have some way to get cordage, make cordage, for example, you're growing hemp, which may be legal to do here fairly soon, which would be kind of cool. I've tried growing cotton. It didn't work out well for me here on the river bottom. I think hemp probably would, but I can't grow it legally at the moment. Here we go. So easy enough to replace the cartridge material on this. You can rebuild this filter. It goes inside this pump body here, this filter body here. This is a 5-micron filter. It'll get out most of your sediment, most of your silt, most of everything else, and it was not expensive. These are super cheap. This was super cheap. I think the most expensive thing about this actually is this. Second most expensive was this little valve here, which I got so that we can open and close, going from that 350-gallon storage tank. After you've manually pumped your water, you want to get a drink. This is in between there and the house. You have to keep this inside the house. I had the first one of these I had it stored out inside the pump house, and it had water in it. And winter came and it froze and it cracked the body of the pump, or body of the filter here. So lesson learned, keep these indoors so that they don't break whenever it freezes. In any case, do you need to get something that's $70, $80, $90 to filter your water and takes all dang day to do? No, you don't. One of these will get you your filtration done and do it quick. They're made for it. All right. They're made for it, designed for it, purpose built, so you can filter your water. Not that there's anything wrong with getting some sort of like pitcher filter that they can use, but in all seriousness, get a filter that's designed to filter water. And you don't have to pay a lot for it. Of course, our water being the way it is, you probably want to boil it afterwards. Oh, let's see. Wannabe Prepper came in. I saw Wannabe Prepper's channel earlier today, and I think that she's doing good. She was commenting on the grow your own fertilizer bit, and I said, yeah, you know, Being in the position when you're growing your own, whether it's your own medicine, your own fertilizer, your own food, you're way ahead of the pack. Way, way ahead of the pack. This is tea, by the way, and it's tasty. All right, let me show you another little plant that we have here. Now, this is one that I've been trying to get started for quite a while, and I finally have it. Guys, do you know what this plant is? This plant right here. Anybody recognize this plant? You could just say the general category of plant that it is. Mary, you can't say because you know. Do you recognize what this plant is? Anybody at all? I'm checking comments down here. I'm just going to sit here and wait until somebody puts an answer in here. DA says comfrey. No, not comfrey. Bok choy. No, not bok choy. Although bok choy is a wonderful plant. I love bok choy. We have two different varieties of bok choy growing right now. We've got the little tiny baby choy, and then we've got the full-size bok choy. Craze Family Garden says mullein. Good guess. It looks a little bit like mullein early on, and it does actually look a little bit like comfrey early on, but it is not mullein. It's not comfrey. Not mullein, not comfrey. Not bok choy. Any other guesses? Going once. Going twice. This is a pesticide. Now, ordinarily, I don't recommend using pesticides because, no, John, it's not buckwheat. I don't recommend using pesticide because you have a good chance of hurting your beneficial insects as much as you have of hurting the nasty ones that you wanted to get rid of. Sometimes you do need to use a pesticide. Elderberry, incidentally, if you use elderberry leaves and bark and boil that down, use that as a spray for problems with fungi and also problems with pests. But this one is a more specific pesticide. And yes, it is tobacco. This one is not just any kind of tobacco, though. I've tried growing a couple of different varieties. I tried Virginia Gold back whenever I still smoked because thought of being without tobacco kind of worried me. And if you've ever had really old cigarettes before, really old tobacco, it's not good. It's really kind of nasty. So for a while there, I was trying to grow tobacco because I wanted to have a supply of tobacco. I tried growing tea because I wanted to have a supply of tea for caffeine. Now I'm growing Yopon holly because that's also caffeine, and it's nice. But this tobacco is actually not really so much for smoking. This particular type of tobacco is unusual because it's Nicotiana silvestris, woodland tobacco. Grows to be about 6 foot tall, and here in Zone 7A, it should be a perennial. So this is a perennial tobacco as opposed to an annual one that you would just plant, grow, and then harvest. It's not really there for smoking, but it is there for the night blooming flowers. That'll draw the biting insects away from the common areas where people are likely to be, because most of those, we're talking about mosquitoes, their primary diet is not blood, it's nectar. And so if you've got your female mosquitoes looking for male mosquitoes, and then in the mating mood, they're going to be where the male mosquitoes are feeding, and that's going to be where the night blooming flowers are. So this goes someplace that's far enough away from the common areas that as long as you're walking around with a little bit of lavender on you, the mosquitoes don't smell you, and they're out hunting that anyway. So it's more of a kind of persuading the insects not to bite you. Now that's helpful because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. I don't know if you've ever tried to grow quinine in our particular climate, but quinona, the tree that the quinine comes from, it's kind of hard to come by. And malaria, well, it's difficult to treat without the appropriate medicine. All right. But you could always, I guess, buy up a stock of tobacco and try to keep it hermetically sealed for trade or whatever. A lot of these things that you can grow, you can trade in an emergency situation. Wannabe purposes, I wonder if tobacco can be grown in containers. Yeah, I don't see why it couldn't be. There's very few things that you can grow that can't be grown in containers. Now, a lot of these prepping channels will try to get you to buy something from an affiliate, an associate that they have a link to, that they're gonna show you this. Here's the sample we got from the company. We want you to try this product, and if they can get you to buy one, they're going to get a percentage of sales. Nothing wrong at all with making a profit. The thing I'm getting ready to show you right now, though, I don't have an affiliate link. I actually have not tried this particular brand out yet, so I can't give you a proper review of it, but I can tell you something about it in general. Here we go. John Pumphrey says seeds. Yeah, I'll talk about seeds in a minute. Absolutely, because yeah, especially seeds. Let me show you this thing real quick here. This here is a 100-watt solar panel, 18-volt DC, which you would attach to a charge controller. I'm going to be careful with it because I don't want to break it. That you would attach to a charge controller, like one of these. Oh, cost of that was I think $89. That's shipping included. $89. You attach to one of these. This is a charge controller. It's pretty simple operation. You put your battery attached here to the middle, then you attach your solar panel, and then over here you put whatever your load's going to be in that order. And if you're taking it apart, you reverse that order. All right. So one of these charge controller, to operate a 12-volt DC system, $15. They were so cheap, I got two of them. That way, if something goes wrong with one, I've already got a backup for it. So we've got, let me see, 100-watt solar panel. That's what comes with the heavily advertised one that has 1,800 watt hours for a storage capacity. 1,800 watt hours. Remember that one? All right. What does that one cost? About $2,500. An insane price, right? $15 for the charge controller. $89 for a 100-watt panel. All right, what are we up to now? About $100. Batteries are the main. Yeah, batteries get expensive. And a lot of the batteries that you see are these lithium-ion batteries, lithium ion phosphate. Those are expensive. You know what else about those is kind of interesting? A good portion of the metals used in those is obtained through slave labor. So if you've got morals, I don't know why you're buying anything with a lithium-ion battery in the first place, especially a car, right? But anyway, this here is a lead-acid battery. It's a sealed lead-acid battery. This is 22 watt-hours, 12 volts. All right? There's nothing in this that requires that children be made to work in a strip mine to acquire. So even though this one is made in China, like everything else is these days, the things that go into it are not rare earth metals, and they don't require despoiling the earth to a great degree to obtain. There's enough lead out there right now that if we were just recycling the lead that's already on the surface, we wouldn't have any need for any more, really. Sasper says, how about these phones and computers? Everything's built on slave labor. Yeah, I know. So I've got this thing, right? Instead of a smartphone. Just because the battery lasts to next to forever. If I drop it, it doesn't break. And all I really need it for is to make and receive phone calls. Yeah, no, lead isn't exactly healthy. Well, lead oxide particularly. But we're not going to be eating or drinking this thing. Now, one of the other advantages of having a lead acid battery is, should one of your cells go bad, or should the entire battery go bad, it's not that difficult to rebuild a cell. So I have this one. Oh, see, this one was, I think, $46. Wait, plus shipping. This other one here, also $46. Put these two together. That's 44 amp hours. Now, what can I do with 44 amp hours? Well, I don't know. Let me see. I can probably operate something important, something I really, really need. not a microwave, not a big screen TV, not a VCR, not a computer, not a refrigerator. Shoot, if you're serious about prepping and you're relying upon a refrigerator to keep your food, you just I don't know what to tell you. Freezer. I've got a gas powered generator that I can run the freezer on long enough for me to get all the food out of it and either dehydrate it or can it, or have a cookout and we'll just eat everything that's in the freezer. A freezer is a nice convenience, but if you're relying upon a freezer for a real emergency situation, the freezer is not going to carry you through. All right, so what can I do with 44 amp hours? Well, let me show you something you can do with 44 amp hours. Oh, well, there's that too. You could run some of these LED grow lights. Those are useful. You know, these are set up to run off of AC, but the LEDs themselves, they run on 12-volt DC. Go figure. You can run a water pump. Yes, you can. Even more importantly than a water pump, you can run one of these. This is an air pump. This one gets about 2 liters per minute, which is more than I need for the application I've got it for. So I got one of these little manifolds so we can split it. And a 0.5 liter per minute is still more than I need for the 27-gallon Tough Totes where we'll be growing our shrimp. That's right. We're getting ready to start growing shrimp here. So anyway, yeah. Little air stone at the end, and really easy to just hook up to a battery and operate. Do I need to do that? No, I don't need to do that. I don't have to show you how it works right this minute, do I? So also useful if you're going to be doing things like bubbling your compost tea. You put the air stone in, you bubble your compost tea, take it from anaerobic state to aerobic state, makes it healthy for your plants, use it for foliar feed, all kinds of groovy, wonderful stuff. And should the electrical power go out, I will be able to keep my shrimp tanks aerated so that that source of food that I have available that I can just go out and get more of anytime I want isn't in danger. John saying, burner for a still. There you go. That's a good use for a rocket stove. Although, in all actuality, some kind of a vacuum distillation unit might be a more efficient way of getting alcohol if you were producing alcohol for fuel in any case. But reflex stills that use a burner, just a basic rocket stove that you can build out of cement blocks will work just fine for that, and use that for making medicine, tinctures and such. I am drinking, Melody is asking what kind of tea I'm drinking. I'm drinking green tea with a little bit of cinnamon and honey in it, and it is just addictive. Heterodox asks, is shrimp the most protein per watt? No, I don't know. I don't know what would be the most protein for what. It's a really good question. I haven't researched it, so I couldn't tell you. But I do know that shrimp is one of the easiest things for you to grow. Freshwater shrimp, Nicotiana, freshwater shrimp. One of the easiest things you can grow in an aquatic system. And man, I'll tell you what, you can use them as feeders for your catfish. And you might be raising catfish to put on the table. You need something to feed to the catfish. So you might have, say, some mosquito fish and shrimp. And you take those and you move them down to where the catfish are. The catfish eat. Catfish get big. You eat the catfish. You need more catfish. You run out, set your trap out there in the creek. Bring it in. You got some catfish and some bass and some perch and some other things. Restock your pond with it, and you're back in business again. What? Mary says river prawns make great attack dogs. The macrobrachia river prawns. I'm kind of interested in growing those, and we might experiment a little bit. But the reason I'm not 100% all in with the idea of growing prawns yet is because they require a saline environment to breed. So we could grow them, take 6 months to grow them out, and then we'd have nice, delicious, tasty prawns, and we harvest them as we need them. And prawns are yum, yum, yum. But getting that to be sustainable inland without having to go and purchase new baby prawns from somewhere could be a problem. But if you're growing in small spaces, you need to have small things that you can produce for your meat. Because although I can grow enough calories and I can grow enough protein with vegetables, I'm still a little bit of a carnivore, and I kind of like my meat. And I really like shrimp. I like fish too, and I like eggs. So at some point, we're going to be adding some ducks in as well. So we'll have a few ducks for duck eggs. And of course, we'll have the shrimp, a few shrimp, some duck eggs, and lots of veggies, which include plenty of root veggies and seasonings and all kinds of other wonderful stuff on a 1/3 acre property. Not hard to produce enough for 3 or 4 people. Just say it. It's not hard. I saw one guy, and this video is probably about a year or two old. I saw one guy talking about how much acreage you need or how much land do you need for homesteading. I was like, that'd be interesting to see what this guy has to say. Clicked on it, watched it. He's thinking 5 acres a person. I think 5 acres a person, really? Now, maybe in some places, like in the middle of the desert, yeah, you might have to have 5 acres to be able to do it. But yeah, at the rate that they reproduce, about anywhere from 12 to 20 of those 27-gallon totes going with the freshwater shrimp in them, easy enough to run off of one or two solar panels and probably about 4 of those batteries altogether to keep everything running, even on the cloudy days. Those will run just fine. John's saying, nope, 5 acres for a family. Depends upon how big your family is. I mean, if you've got, say, 12 people in your family, yeah, 5 acres is enough. 5 acres is more than that. If you got playground room to run around and just do silly stuff and experiment with. Anyway, for a family of 4, oh yeah, you're living high on the hog on 5 acres. In all actuality, anytime you try to go out and do a lot of this work with just your hands and hand tools, I've got to tell you, 1/3 of an acre is a lot of work with just your hands and hand tools. Sassafras Red says, John Jeevan says you can grow all your food on like 1/4 of an acre. Oh yeah, you can. It's easier to defend 1/3 than 5. That's true. Oh, speaking of defense, so we'll get to defense in a minute. But somebody was mentioning, John, you were mentioning seeds earlier. Oh yeah, I mean the affiliate links to go buy seeds. Now, I have friends who are in YouTube that have affiliate links that they go to have things like freeze-dried food, to get seeds. To some of them have affiliate links for generators and things like that. I understand they're trying to make a buck, and there's nothing wrong with that. Also, those particular friends are into growing their own food heavily, which is one of the reasons why they're friends, right? If they were just telling you, hey, stock up on a bunch of stuff, get a bunch of ammo, you need 1,000 rounds for your main battle rifle, here's some body armor, and have your freeze-dried food over here and a life straw, you're good to go, buddy. No. That's having things like this is great. Having some sort of food that you've got stashed away is great. Hang on a second. Especially if you live in a place like Oklahoma where you're any given a week away from a power outage that could last from a couple hours to a couple of weeks. I had something stashed around me. I was just gonna pull out and wave around. Oh, yeah. Lose my mind. Nothing wrong with planning ahead and getting a few things like, oh, let's stop by and pick up a can of beef stew from the supermarket. These things, as long as the seals remain intact, they remain dry, keep almost indefinitely, and they'll still be good years from now. This is about $2. $2. This is not the name brand. This is the off brand, right? And still dang tasty. That's a full meal right there. $2 for a meal is not bad. I can live with $2 for a meal. A bit more expensive and not near as good. You could always get these, right? Now these are nowhere as good as the MREs used to be back when I was a kid. Back when I was a kid, you could still get the canned sea rations, which, after being decades old, you could open up and they were still palatable. And then after that, they had the Mylar pouches, the olive drab green Mylar pouches. I remember getting some of those in the late 80s. And I'd take them out with me camping. And if you went fishing or you were out there in the woods camping or whatever, and you couldn't catch your meal, instead of eating your bait, you could always open up one of those and eat it. But these, oh my goodness, these are horrible. I mean, bad, not good, and expensive too. How much, Mary? You bought these? Do you remember how much these were? I'm thinking it was in the vicinity of around $50 for like 15 of them or so. I mean, expensive. This was a few years back. For the same amount of money that it costs to get a couple of weeks of these, you can get a couple of trees that you can plant in your yard. It's a fruit tree and a nut tree. Between the two of those together will provide you with about 40 days worth of food instead of 15 days worth of food every single year for your life, for your children's life, and for your grandchildren's lives. Same amount of money. These, you eat them, they're gone. That's it. You're done. Somebody can come along, they can take them away from you. And that's it. You've lost them. They're never coming back. Trees, unless they come by and happen to grab your fruit just at the right moment, whenever it was coming right, they can take this. They're not going to take your tree. Just saying. Here's something else you can be growing. MREs are about $10 each. Oh my goodness. So $150 for 15 of them. Okay. Well, in that case, at about $35 a tree, you can get 3 trees. Well, that's more like 50 days worth of food instead of 15. All right. Here's something else. I've been wanting to show you these guys for a while now. You see them really well? Let me put this camera down so I pulled these up today. This is just one small clump of them. You see those? I've been trying to get these to grow for a while, and we first inoculated 2 years back. 2 years back we inoculated those. This is King Stropharia rugose annulata, garden giant or wine cap mushroom. And these guys get really, really big. I picked them at button size because they're a little bit tastier here. Evelyn, yes. Ding, ding. Got it in. She got it in one right there. Wine cap mushrooms, guys. So as I was going around laying out the wood chips, because we're gardening with the wood chips, yay, I inoculated with King Stropharia rugose annulata. Mushroom spawn. Lots of it. I got it from, I think, Northsport. I think Greg Allison, is whenever he gets his little lab set up where he can cultivate mushrooms, we might be able to get it from him too. But once you've got these established, the mycelium runs everywhere. As long as you keep on supplying fresh material, you should be able to get these on a regular basis every year. And these guys taste a bit like a portobello mushroom sauteed in wine. So if you've got a little bit of light oil, maybe peanut oil from peanuts that you grow yourself, that you compress with a hand press, you've got gourmet food growing in your yard year in and year out. You're not having to subsist on MREs, and you don't have something that somebody can just walk in and steal from you. As long as you're alive, you go, okay, fine. Here, take all that stuff. I don't need it. They go, you don't need it? No, don't need it. I'll be fine. Go on. Or maybe just walk away and let them take whatever they want. As long as you're alive and you're surviving, you come back to the spot you've got prepared like this, you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from. You don't have to worry about where your food's coming from. You don't have to worry about your shelter. You don't have to worry about your fuel. None of that. Your medicine already taken care of. So these people that are wanting you to just stock stuff up and buy expensive gear, I don't think they're serious about prepping. I think they're serious about making a buck, but I don't think they're serious about prepping. All right. If they were serious about prepping, they would tell you that you don't have to buy a $2,500 solar power generator that only has 1,800 watt hours of battery capacity. They tell you you can spend $200-300 and have all the electrical power that you really need for the things you really need it for. They'd also tell you can do things like buy this 16 gauge lamp wire to connect your 12-volt system. You know, AC wiring is expensive. This stuff is cheap, really cheap. This is what, 25 feet of it, and I think we paid like $10-15 for a roll of 25 feet lamp wire. And this has got, it's actually 25 feet of two lines, so we have one coming and one going. So I can wire up a panel to my batteries, to my aerator, have all of that running. And John's saying, no, the speaker's probably not as good. I need to get a new speaker. I was looking around for a new speaker, and I'm thinking a Samsung perhaps might be one of the next purchases that we get for a new speaker. So anyway, wires, 16 gauge. That's suitable for 12-volt external landscape lights. 12-volt system can run on 16. Now, if you're going to be using AC, yeah, you're going to have to go with a lower gauge wire, a bigger wire. But for a 12-volt system, that lamp wire is perfectly fine. Well, yeah, the Samsung mic was a little bit more expensive, but I hear good things about it. And I've been really desperate to get a decent microphone because John's saying Motorola might be a bit more expensive too. And toss that category 5 cable away all the time in commercial jobs. Oh yeah, I bet they do. Because it's cheap. It's cheaper just to drop it and forget about it than to spend the man hours to roll it up and take it away with you, right? All right. So what did I not show you? Here's something I didn't show you. This is, that's it. Let me back up. This is some more prepping supplies we've got here. As a matter of fact, this isn't even prepping supplies anymore. This is just everyday use. Now, a few good prepper channels will tell you to prep what you're going to use and use what you prep. And that's good advice. If you're going to be eating lots of beans and rice, then yeah, prepping beans and rice makes sense. Right? Now, this stuff you do not flush. It'll clog up your septic drain field. But it's so incredibly useful. And I'm opening up this box that just arrived because I don't want to go into the bathroom and pull out another box. It's in there. So we get these. There's 12 of them per case. These are baby wipes, right? Wonderful stuff, the baby wipe, I might add. It gets the parts clean that need to get clean a lot better than regular tissue does. And you can also use it for other light hygiene and sanitation purposes. I could probably use some on my forehead because I just came in from, I just came in from outside earlier, and I just realized I've got dirt all over my face and my forehead. Oh, I've been working on expanding the water for every garden system into the front yard. I got to looking around out there and decided, yeah, I think I could probably use this out here too. That way I've got my irrigation already in place in the ground, and I don't have to do anything else. Whenever the water falls, whenever it rains, it goes out, goes into these ditches, these channels that I've dug. They're filled with wood chips. That holds it in the ground close to the soil where it's going to be needed by the plants. And I don't have to get out there and pump water to manually irrigate. Saves me a lot of trouble in the future. It's a little bit of extra work now, but it saves me a lot of trouble in the future. And of course, I can do my composting in those ditches, in those trenches. So I don't have to have separate space for compost heaps. As those wood chips break down, I scoop them up and put them onto my planting bed. So I add that fertility up there on the top of the planting beds, add more chips for the walkway, and we're back to the races again. And since they're holding so much water, things like these are going to grow a lot better, a whole lot better. I've discovered that the places that were able to receive and retain water flushed a lot heavier than the other places. And you got to understand, at the moment, I've got more of these than we can eat. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do with them all. I think maybe dry them, chop them up, add some cumin and garlic and salt, pepper, and maybe some dehydrated tomatoes, beans, and make a chili or something. I don't know. We'll just seal it in pouches, and it'll be emergency chili with red wine cap mushroom as a meat substitute. Who knows? We've got more of these than we know what to do with. And if the current situation is any indication, it'll be so much more. And they're going to keep on coming. Once they start, they keep on coming. As long as you've got enough moisture in the ground, the temperatures are appropriate for them, they'll flush for up to 4 or 5 months out of the year. And John's saying, can them, trade them. Yeah, absolutely. Share them. I don't know. The thing that we're working on here is something that the food supplies are in such abundance and so easy to duplicate and so common that it seems almost a crime to charge for them. But in a real serious emergency situation, it's no problem to go, here's some food for today. Here's some food for tomorrow. You plant this, it'll take care of you for the rest of your life. Enjoy it. Bye-bye. Thank you. Go in peace. Which brings me around to the other thing, where I don't think a lot of these prepper channels are entirely serious about prepping. I don't think so. Because one of the things that you'll hear from quite a few of these, one of the ones that I was auditing earlier today said this, it's, don't tell anybody you're prepping. What's the fear here? Well, you know what the fear is. The fear is you tell people that you're prepping, you tell people what you're prepping, they're going to go, well, they've got the stuff, we're going to come take their stuff. Right? Well, why were you prepping in the first place? Just out of curiosity. Did you just have some random idea? Hey, I think I'm going to stockpile a bunch of food and tools and medicine and things like that. Just on an off chance, on a whim that maybe someday they might be useful for something. I don't know. Or did you have a good, legitimate reason in mind, a credible threat to security and survival that made you say, hey, you know what? I think being prepared for some emergency stuff might be a good idea. And if it was a good idea, then the one thing that you need to worry about is the person that wasn't prepared, right? Why aren't they prepared? Did somebody not bother to tell them that they should be prepared? That's your neighbor, right? Do you not care about your neighbors so much that you go, I'm going to prep for myself, and I'm not going to mention why to my neighbor. I'm not going to give them a heads up so that they can do it too. As it turns out, the most valuable prepper resource that you can possibly have, the most valuable resource, it's not guns, it's not ammo, it's not food, it's not solar panels, it's not batteries, it's not medicine, it's not bandages, it's not fuel, it's not even tools. You know what the most valuable resource is? Other people, a community, your neighbors, because you can't do everything yourself at all. Friends and neighbors. Yeah. Friends and neighbors, other people. So, yeah, tell people you're prepping. Tell them why you're prepping. And to a certain extent, where it might be any of their business or useful, tell them what you're prepping. Because if they have the ability to provide something that you can't, you can say, hey, I don't happen to have blah, 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 blah. So if you're going out and getting stuff and you want to have something that's going to be useful for the community, that's a place to start. If you don't tell anyone, you're going to be sitting in a basement, or not in a basement, but you're going to be sitting wherever you're sitting with all of your stuff that isn't enough to get to actually really survive on, in all actuality, surrounded by people that are not informed, that didn't know ahead of time that there was really something they needed to be prepared for, that eventually are going to figure out that you've got stuff. And they're not going to be friendly to you because you had the opportunity way back when to inform them ahead of time. Hey, you know what? There's most likely going to be a loss of our power grid on the national level, most likely sometime within our lifetimes. It might be a little bit longer than we don't really know whenever this event's going to occur, but we do know that 100% absolute certainty it will occur. And since the power grid isn't hardened, we're going to be without power for, well, pretty much indefinitely. It takes too long to rebuild it. In our lifetimes, it won't get rebuilt. We might want to be prepared for that. Here's some of the things that I'm doing. What can you think of that would strengthen our community? But you didn't share this with your neighbors. Of course, one of the very first things a prepper who's serious about prepping should have told you is you can't grow anything in the city. Get out of the city. It's a wasteland. There's nothing there for you. Get out. You can survive in a city for a certain amount of time, but ultimately, the city is not a place where you're going to want to live. It's not, in all actuality, it's not a place where you want to live right now. Have you seen the places? They're filthy. They stink. People live on top of each other. Everybody's got bad attitudes. They're rubbing off on each other. It's just a miserable place to be under the best of circumstances. And yeah, the people that live there, clueless people, right? They have no idea where their food comes from. They go to sleep at night. They wake up in the morning. The shelves have been stocked in the grocery store. Why are people bothering to grow food? You can just go to the store and buy it, right? You know, this you hear this on TikTok. It's scary. But yeah, people think that. Yeah, cities are gross. Gross, nasty places. One of my cousins was posting on Facebook that his trip to Paris. And he didn't give me a response to the question I asked him. He was standing out there in front of the Eiffel Tower. It was well behind him. He's close to, I think, the Seine, the river. And I asked him, hey, Wesley, does it really stink as bad as I've heard in Paris? And he didn't respond. The picture looks nice, but it's not smell-o-vision. Sasspress saying, I often wonder about the bodhisattva attitude towards the collapse. Is it better to hide than to live among and help the city folks? I think it's better to help the city folks before the collapse ever happens. And the way you do that is to tell them, hey, you need to start getting prepped. Probably a good idea is to find a way to get out of the city. Incidentally, guys, I know there's a lot of talk about bug out bags. And this is a fairly common prepper topic. Lots of videos about what's put in your bug out bag, all that wonderful stuff, how to go about traveling post-collapse in a world without the rule of law and all that wonderful stuff. But I got to tell you one thing. If you are not in your bug out location already, you're not going to get there in all likelihood. That's the real that's the real outlook. You're probably not going to be able to get there. That's cheery, isn't it? You should already be in your bug out location. If you're not already in your bug out location, then the minute that you realize that, oh no, this is the real deal, and I need to be at my bug out location, it's probably going to be too late for you to get there. So start out with, get out of the city. If you're not in a place where there is sufficient resources around you to provide for your livelihood, you're not in the place that you need to be at, because you're having to be dependent upon somebody else to bring it to you. And in a real emergency situation, there's nobody coming to help you. Nobody. Now, some people have a book they read, and they get the idea from the book that there is going to be an external savior that's going to come and appear and pick them up and carry them away from all their worries and all their cares, and everything's going to be fine. That book also tells you that you don't know the day and the hour that this is going to happen. It would be really a sad thing to be waiting for the rapture and have it happen 200 or 300 years after you die of starvation. Just saying. Vicky says, I have lost all fear of death. There you go. It's a great attitude to have. There's no sense in being afraid of dying. Everybody does it. You may not be ready for it whenever it happens, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And every bit of effort that you waste worrying about it, every minute that you waste dwelling on it and going, oh, is a minute that you could have been living. And the question is, well, how do you want to live? Do you want to live a life of scarcity? Do you want to live in hiding and in fear? Or do you want to live openly and happily? Do you want to be able to be one of those people that whenever you walk into a room, people look and go, I don't know why, but I'm happy this person showed up. They have a smile on their face. They're friendly. They're not irritated and uptight and on edge about something. They don't look like they're getting ready to lose it. I can't remember who it was. I was talking to somebody about this. Mary and I, whenever we go out, we have this happen quite frequently, quite often. And it shouldn't be this way, but it does. The people that we encounter say, I'm so glad that you guys came through here. It's like a breath of fresh air. It was Brian Perendi had mentioned that the people being uptight and tense, even in small towns. Everywhere you go, people are they're uptight, they're tense, they're worried, they're concerned. And it's a bad attitude, because you don't get anywhere through worry. Now, to a certain extent, being concerned about matters is sufficient to prompt you to take the action that you need to take. There's a certain bit of here. Let's have some safflower behind us there. There's a certain bit of sense to having a sufficient amount of concern or care that you take appropriate measures, right? Whenever you're approaching the intersection and you see the light has turned from yellow to red, having sufficient care means I'm going to apply some pressure to the brake and we don't get into a wreck. All right, that's just normal caution. But excessive worry doesn't help. Is it something you can do something about? Yes. Then do what you can do. Is it not something you can do something about? Don't worry about it. You can't do anything about it, right? You can't go out there and make the world a peaceful place. You just can't. You can try, but ultimately, it's up to every individual to make the changes in themselves and with themselves and in their own lives that will affect that change. Be responsible for yourself first and foremost. And of course, be open and shed that light around you. And whenever people see that light, whenever they see you smiling, when they see that you're not worried, you're not afraid, and you're living, they might just ask, hey, what do they have? What's their secret? That's the idea. That's how it spreads. You make the better life something that is so attractive people couldn't possibly imagine wanting to live any other way. So anyway, wow, I've been talking for a while, and I haven't been looking at a lot of comments. Let me back up here and see what everybody's been chatting about, and we'll catch up. I'm glad so many of you showed up today. So it's 17 in the room right now. I think we had up 20 at one time, which is quite a few for me. I see everybody's been carrying on, and that's a good thing. Hopefully you guys are communicating back and forth with each other, and I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the comments. So if you had questions, hopefully somebody out there in the audience that has answers has been providing them, because the smartest person in the room is the room. If I don't happen to know something, somebody else will, and probably somebody else's answer is going to be even better than mine. We had Nunya, Texas on the back 20 in the house. Hello. Eric Hale. Hello. Red Scout came in and said, just a little is better than none. John Conrad Farms, Cousin John stopped in to say hi. John's one of those people out there that's working on a functioning beef cattle operation. And he put a video out earlier today that says, hey, it's getting tough making ends meet for the people who are growing the meat. So just so you know, beef is expensive and it's probably going to get more so. Ken Jennings says, hey, y'all from Georgia. Red Scott says, I'm pretty spot on to be fair. Well, thank you very much. I try not to put out bad info. Occasionally, I do the same thing everybody does. I only know what I know. And in some cases, the sources we draw from aren't great. Sassafras said, try to make videos that are a waste to everyone but me. Sassafras has made a couple of videos. I wish you would make more, because Sassafras is doing a lot of great work with Agroforestry up there in Illinois, and he's really expanding his orchard. A lot of people will be able to be fed from that. Mary says she was listening to scary stories. What? Not as many trolls. Yeah, I don't know why we don't have more trolls here. It's a shame. I was at, where was this? I think it was called Ride with Mystic or something of that nature. It was one of the channels where they capture Sadhguru giving talks, and then there's discussion in the comments, and sometimes I have to do this here, isn't it? But he had made that comment about you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. This is the place where you need to focus your attention. And I said, this is the most important thing you said. And since the only thing you have to change is your own self, this makes the problems easy to solve. Because I can change me, and I'm pretty sure if you've got things that need to be changed, you can change you. It's not like we have to move something huge. It's just we have to make changes on ourselves. Form new habits. New habits, like deciding to drink tea instead of booze, or deciding to grow some of your own food and eat that on a regular basis instead of going to McDonald's. Little things, and little things add up. They add up to big things. And somebody says, "Oh, we'll see how your affirmations work whenever there's not enough food for everybody to eat." And I responded to this person and said, "Well, I see you're concerned about the impending crisis with the food supply. Why don't you go ahead and have a look at my channel and review the videos that are there, watch a few, and come back in comments and let me know the 5 least valuable, the 5 least useful videos that are there. And go ahead and watch all of them. That way, you'll be able to have a really good idea about which 5 are the least useful." And of course, they went away. Came back on a separate account. I can tell it's a separate account because they used the same kind of language. You know, some people, whenever they talk, they keep on repeating the same kind of words over and over and over again because they don't have enough imagination, I guess, to come up with new words and new ways of expressing themselves. So anyway, they came back on a separate account and said, that wasn't worry this other person had. That was confidence. Yes, they're going to come and they're going to attack you and they're going to take your food away from you and they're going to kill you and they're going to eat you. Well, that's nice. I'd like for you to come and watch my channel too. Watch all of my videos and let me know what exactly is wrong with what I'm talking about. You can be an educator for me. I would greatly appreciate your wisdom. Come along, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I've got that's not quite right. Help me improve the message. You seem to know what you're talking about. And of course, they went away and didn't say anything. I probably won't hear from them again. And it's unfortunate because if that particular troll were to come and watch a few videos, they'd click on them and they'd see the bumper ads and I get revenue out of it. But no, they just like to talk. Oh well. Silvestris says, "Oh, I love creepypasta stories." Oh yeah, don't I think Mary is like watching Mr. B. Allen. He does some really good storytelling. Mary says, trucker scary stories. Oh, trucker scary stories are really scary, though. Let me see. John's saying, snake oil salesmen are some of the preppers sometimes. This is true. I mean, you'll have some that in order to generate revenue are going to have an affiliate that they promote product for. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're also going to tell you some serious things like get to a place where you can actually be independent or work towards your independence and grow your own food, things like that. Sassafras Red loves oil pressing snakes. John says he's done the bow drill. It is hard. Yes, it is, especially if you have to build the entire thing from scratch. I mean, we're talking, go out there into the woods. Okay, here's a reasonably flexible sapling. Hang on a second. I need something to cut it with. I don't have a knife. I'm going to go down to a creek bed, search around, and hopefully we can find some flint. Okay, here's a piece of flint. Let's find another piece of flint or something harder that we can. Okay, we've got a flake. Now we've got something we can work on cutting this sapling with. We got the sapling. We cut the sapling. Okay, we've got a flexible sapling. Now we're going to strip bark off of this tree over here. We're going to wind it into cordage. We're going to bend our sapling over and tie off that cordage to either end, get a little loop in the middle of it, find a nice hardwood stick somewhere, right, that we can put through there, find another rock, sandstone, soapstone, or maybe a piece of wood to apply the pressure on the back side of it. Get yourself a nice piece of down tree. Remember, you're working with a flint chip here. Hopefully that you can get a notch into so that you can sit there and apply the pressure with a bow drill and work it so you've got the friction enough to generate the hot embers that you can apply. Oh, shoot. Did you remember to go get something to get your fire started and a fire starting bundle together? Well, you're going to have to go get that. Put that hot ember on there and you've got fire. I'm so glad that they invented the cigarette lighter. Because that is hard work. You're right. It's incredibly hard, but yeah, it's worth picking up that skill, at least to the point where you know how valuable it is to have a cigarette lighter in your pocket. Are you saying some people only prep for emergencies? Just saying there's nothing wrong with just prepping for the occasional emergency too, but serious preppers grow their own. Nice Monty Python reference, Sassafras Red. Heterodox saying bee balm and lemon balm both die back but return. Yes, and I haven't had any problem spreading bee balm around. So whenever I got a bee balm patch, I can take a few plants and move it to a new place, and take another few plants and move it to a new place, and just spread it around. The pollinators love it. Lots of thymol, and so if you wind up with cuts, scratches, things like that, whenever you can't go to the emergency room and get yourself treated, having something that will kill infection on contact, dead, is amazingly useful. They're saying prep for inflation. Whew. How do you prep for inflation? Trying to not to be dependent upon money, I think is the best possible thing you can do. Is get yourself to a point where you are not dependent on money. At least not for the basics of life, right? Mary and I were talking about this. When was this, yesterday, Mary? Back during the Depression, whenever there were houses and farms being foreclosed on, during the 1980s also, whenever there were more foreclosures. A bank isn't going to foreclose on you if you have a loan out and the bank gets in trouble. The bank's going to foreclose on you if you have a loan out and you're behind on your payments and the bank is in trouble. Then they're going to call in the note, try to confiscate the property, and maybe they can turn around quick sell it so they can get themselves out of a jam. But as long as you're maintaining the terms of the contract to borrow money from them, they can't foreclose on you. Let me see. Sassafras Rose saying, how did you make oil of oregano? I actually didn't make oil of oregano. I used some pre-made oil of oregano. I don't have enough oregano at the moment to make oil out of. I've got enough bee balm that I could extract essential oil from the bee balm. And I have used the hot water method to get an extraction of it. I made an antiseptic wash out of bee balm that worked pretty well. Yep, yarrow staunches bleeding and prevents infection. Also, fever reducer. It's very good. I haven't attempted to use it as a rooting hormone yet, but I imagine it would probably be useful for helping getting plants to root, because it contains a little bit of salicin, just like willow bark does. Melody says, need some yarrow. I think I have calendula, oregano, bee balm, mint, borage, and lemon balm. What are you missing? Depends upon what you need. You're probably going to want to find something to help get rid of vermin, intestinal parasites. Something like Syrian rue would do the trick. Perhaps passion flower, Passiflora incarnata, American water lily, or what's that one that tastes good but smells foul? Valerian root for anti-anxiety. You'd be surprised at how many people have anxiety disorders these days. They come along, they're panicked. They come to your door and you go, here, have a cup of tea. Calm down, have a seat. What's wrong? They see that you're calm. They have something that helps with the anti-anxiety, because they're probably not going to be on their meds. You know how many people are on anti-anxiety meds right now? Imagine whenever they can't go to the pharmacy and get their prescriptions refilled. So yeah, having something for anti-anxiety is generally a good idea. Sassafras Red saying, watch someone talk about how indigenous people consume medicinal plants regularly rather than it being just for sales. Well, there are a lot of things that are medicinal and can be used. Kitty came by to say hi. There are a lot of things that can be used medicinally that are also perfectly suitable for everyday food. I'm glad you agree with me, Kitty. For example, right now out there, just outside the front porch, I've got a what? Okay, an eastern spiderwort or prairie spiderwort. The two look so similar. I don't know the difference between the two of them. In any case, it's a spiderwort growing out there. It's edible. You can eat it as a pot herb. You can eat it fresh as a fresh green, as long as the leaves haven't toughened up yet. They're still good as a salad green, and it's in flower right now. Pretty purple flowers. Pretty little plant. I got it from Arkansas woodcutter. He brought me a couple, or he brought me a clump. It was a couple plants in the clump. And I took cuttings of it and I spread it around, and now I have it growing in various places. And that one is perfectly edible, but it's useful for extracting venom from insect bites, snake bites, and things of that nature. So multiple uses. Melody is saying, how would you use clover as a fertilizer? Two ways that you can use clover as a fertilizer. The first way is do what I do. And whenever you're preparing a new piece of ground, plant clover. Instead of leaving bare ground, first thing you do is plant clover. Just broadcast clover all over it. And then whenever you want to take your plants and bring them into that environment, you either cut the clover out of the area where you're going to plant into, or you can top kill the clover, either by burning it with a propane torch or laying a sheet of wood over it or strip of cloth over it so that it kills it off. And then as you do that, particularly if you top kill it instead of cutting it out, all of the nitrogen nodules that are on the roots of that clover will come off and be in the soil and available to the plants that you're getting ready to plant. So the clover is making fertilizer for you all the time. If you walk on the clover and you crush the tops and you kill off a little bit of the top, you'll also kill off some of the roots at the bottom, once more releasing nitrogen into the ground. You can cut your clover back periodically and use that cut greens as a component of your compost, the nitrogen adding component of your compost. There's more nitrogen. It's about 5% nitrogen in clover. It's somewhere between 5 and 7 nitrogen in your clover to go into your compost to enrich your compost. And do the same thing with alfalfa, although alfalfa also has some growth hormone in it, which is beneficial. Dandelion is another good medicinal. Yeah, also edible. Heterodox says, happy 420, everyone. Yay. Who knows, this new bill that they're talking about, we might actually be able to grow our own twine instead of buying the plastic stuff from the hardware store. That'd be kind of nice. Oh, Mary's talking about one of the properties of clover. Clover is trained. It's interesting. You remember from the Beatitudes where Jesus is addressing the crowd and he says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Clover is kind of like that. Say hi, Kate. You're not meek, are you? No, you're not going to inherit the earth. Get away from here. Clover is like that. It's a lowly plant, right? It's sitting here down here underneath everything. It grows in the shade. It's not unhappy to be in the shade of something big and tall. And the grass grows up over it. And the grazing animals come by. Tromp, 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 tromp. And as they're passing through, they're going to stomp on it. And some of it's going to die. It's going to drop nitrogen off. And that's going to feed everything around it, including the grass. The grazing animals are after the grass. Chomp, 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 chomp. And they get down to a certain point. And if there's a little bit of the clover that's up above that, they're going to eat some of the clover too. Whenever the clover grows back, it doesn't grow back above that point. But the grass will. So the next time that ruminant comes through and goes grazing, chomp, 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 it eats the grass, but it doesn't eat the clover. The clover survives. Being meek, it inherits the earth. All right. Let's see. Sasper says, Red says, I would never recommend macerating poppy stems, leaves, and pods, then putting it in 100 proof alcohol. I would never recommend that sort of thing. Poppies. Never, ever recommend. I would never recommend that you grow your own fruit trees, say pear, which produces a lot of sugar. I would never recommend that you make your own cider out of that pear juice. I would never recommend that you put that through a reflux still to get pure grain, or not pure grain, but pure alcohol. And I would certainly never recommend that you take this pretty little happy red flower and chop it up and immerse it in that alcohol. No, not a bit. That would be illegal. What? But if you ever have to do surgery, somebody might greatly appreciate the fact that you have it. Mary's saying, buy gold through my cellar. Just saying. Right. You need to buy gold. You need to buy crypto. Or if you go through my portal to buy your vapor coin, you're going to get a discount and I'll get a piece of the action. I really want you to buy vapor coin because I own a lot of it and I'm trying to get rid of it and exchange it for things that I need. Don't worry, it'll only go up in value. But hey, if you want to spend money on vapor coin, go for it. Go for it. Just make sure you get things you really need first. Yeah, like cat food. What do you mean, like cat food? Shh, go eat a mouse. Heterodox says, "What's the most efficient outdoor cooker or grill? Rocket stove? Yeah, a rocket mass heater is probably the most efficient. Not necessarily the best, but the most efficient. We use for outdoor cooking. We have two options. Well, I mean, other than propane and butane, we have got a propane burner, and we've got a butane burner, butane stove, which are more for cooking out and camping and that sort of thing. But we also have the fire pit, which is nice. It's more for sitting around and enjoying the heat. That's for winter outdoor grilling sort of thing. And then we've got an acorn cooker, which is a grill that has an enclosed top that you seal off. You pack that up with hardwood charcoal, lump charcoal, and you can bake in it. And we have baked in it. When our oven stopped working, the indoor oven stopped working, and my daughter and her friends would come over and they wanted pizza. Well, we had a freezer full of frozen pizzas. We were picking them up for like $5 a piece. You add a couple of extra pieces of pepperoni and some mushrooms and olives on the top, sprinkle a little extra cheese on there, and you put that in the acorn cooker, and you can bake it in that thing, and you have a wood-fired pizza that you can bring out and hand to the kids, and they go, roll, and then it's gone. You have to go make another one. But having multiple options for cooking is useful. I can cook on the indoor stove as well. John's saying boots, beans, bullets, and bandages. Oh yeah, boots is nice, and even more than that, spare boot laces. You wouldn't believe. I run through boot laces before the boots wear out. Well, I buy good boots, but the boot laces don't stand up, so I usually have to have like 2 or 3 pairs of boot laces for every pair of boots, and that way we keep our feet covered. It'd be useful to either know how to make your own footwear or know somebody who does know how to make their own footwear. Once again, community, other people are an excellent survival resource. I'm not an excellent blacksmith and also not an excellent carpenter, but I can at least kind of cobble things together as a carpenter. But knowing somebody who's really good at it, that would be good. Unfortunately, I don't think we have any really good carpenters around here at the moment. And the only blacksmith that we had in the neighborhood moved away. Yep, that's a sniff. Oh, Mary says I recommend the acorn oven. Yeah. John says there are many rocket stoves using an ammo can. It's a good use for a used ammo can. Have you guys ever done that? Have you ever gone out to someplace that had those used ammo cans for sale, and they were up there in the window, and as you walk by, you went, oh, I'm going in there, and you go in there and you find out the ammo cans are empty. It's like false advertisement. That was that 50 BMG ammo. You've got so much of it. Surely it must be cheap, and I can stock up on it, and you find out they're all empty. There's not even any brass that you can reload in there. It's just a great disappointment. Basil and thyme. Thyme has thymol, just like oregano, bee balm. So it depends. Can you grow thyme? Grow thyme. It's got plenty of thymol in it. It's good for you. Says PVC hand pumps can be built easily. We used to use them at gatherings to pump water up the hill and pumped lots of water. Yeah. It's just a gravity operated check valve and 2 sleeves that slide in and out of each other. It's not supposed to look pornographic. With a hole up here for the water to be expelled at on the downstroke, and there you go. But having a well constructed permanent manual pump is nice. Let's see. And it's good to have the experience of building these things for yourself. I've got a really nice cast iron pump, and I've got spare parts for it, but I can't duplicate it. John says, need to be in Georgia for cotton. Yeah, somewhere. I mean, they do grow it here, or at least they did at one time. Oklahoma was a place where they grew cotton. This would have been 1830s, I think. Late 1830s, early 1840s. Just prior to the Cherokee removal. The people that signed the Treaty of Nicotiana, that was in Georgia, which would have been the Ridges and the Watis, packed up their households, packed up all their slaves. They were slave owners, and went ahead and moved out here to Indian Territory after the signing of the treaty. And they got paid well to sign the treaty. The only problem is they weren't authorized to speak for the Cherokee Nation. So the rest of the Cherokee Nation is sitting around here going, what the heck are these people doing? They signed a treaty they're not authorized to make with the United States government. They take the money and then they move off to this new territory. They thought that surely this was not going to stand because the Ridges and Wadis were not authorized to make an agreement for the rest of the nation. But in any case, they came out here early on, picked the best land for themselves, and set up their operation. And they started out by growing the same things that they grew back east. They were growing cotton, among other things. That's a whole other story. The Cherokee Trail of Tears Bean series, which was the single seed challenge from 2 years back. If you watch that series of videos, I go through the entire story. Yeah, I want to be perfect. Let's see. Bake a leg and let's dig it says, if you let the water sit for months, do you still have to boil it? Oh, yeah, I would. You don't know what in the world managed to get started in growing in it. Let's see. Hit the spot where I showed you guys the special little plant here. Oh, it's invisible. Look at that. Ooh. Well, if I hold it up against background, it's still green. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So this plant here, which is invisible, tobacco. This Nicotiana silvestris of Woodland Tobacco, perennial tobacco. Really cool. All right. Anyway. Oh, sarsaparilla was guessing burdock. I wouldn't mind finding some burdock to grow around here, but I don't have it. I have regular dock. I don't have any burdock. Bake a leg and let's dig it home says, I've been recycling bottles and filling them up. It's not a bad idea to have at least a month or two's worth of water on hand. Even if you have the ability to get and purify water, there are certain emergencies that can occur where you may not want to go outside for a month. For example, flash on the horizon, that sort of thing. About a month to 2 months after a nuclear war event, which you will most likely survive, most people will, about a month or two afterwards, it'll be safe to go out and do things like gather water and stuff like that. But up until then, you might want to have your own supply. And you probably don't want to use your drinking water for sanitation. So having things like those baby wipes on hand, kind of useful. All right. Sarsaparilla says, dried out rolling tobacco is the best. Oh yeah. where you've got your papers and you put this dust in there and you try to get it to stay in, and it just sort of falls out the bottom like a Victory cigarette from 1984. Where's the gin? Just to complete the picture, we need some gin to go with this. Want to be purpose says chicory is perennial here in zone 5. Nice. Tastes a bit like coffee when roasted, but it doesn't give you the caffeine that coffee does. But chicory is also a nice tasty vegetable. You just grow it preferably in the shade, so it doesn't have too much chlorophyll. If you grow it in the shade to the point where the leaf structure comes up, but it's still white and it hasn't turned green, and then you harvest it. Oh man, that is very, very tasty stuff. Just saute it with a little bit of butter, a little salt and pepper, maybe a little bit of garlic. Oh, good stuff. All right. Mary saying, Mom drinks soda and refill with water. Oh, the plastic bottles. We still actually have some of those plastic bottles that Mary did, and this is, I think she started doing it in 2005 or so. 2005 was the year that, if you guys don't recall, we got the notification, or at least I did, because I'm interested in these sort of weird things, science topics, that there had been an X45 flare that the sun had put out. So the only stronger CME that we've had since we started keeping track of them was the Carrington event in 1858. So in 2005, I can't remember exactly what month it was, but there was an X45 flare. Of course, it didn't hit the planet, but if it had, it would have been immediately back to the Stone Age, all over and done with. It just didn't. The sun was not facing us at the time that X45 flare went off, so it missed us by a matter of hours. I mean, just none of us. Well, probably none of us would be here right now, because I was not prepared in 2005. I got that notification, read up on it, realized what the implication of that was, and I got into prepping after that. And I got serious about prepping after that. So yeah, Mary used to fill up the plastic bottles. Plastic bottles are not great to store water in. Glass is better. Plastic bottles will eventually decay, crack, the water will leak out. You'll get off taste from the plastic, depending upon what was in the plastic, what was stored in the plastic, and if it was recycled, who knows what was in it to begin with. In any case, glass is better for long-term water storage. But I've kept those and used those for doing things like priming the pump. So I'll go out there and I'll open up the foot valve, pour a 2-liter bottle of water down there, put the foot valve back in, and there we go, back in business. Let's see. Yeah, saving water any way you can is good. It would be a shame. Right now people, they still do it. They take care of bathroom business. Say they go number 1. I may be out of tea here. Go number 1 in the bathroom, and then they flush. And what they're flushing is perfectly good drinking water. And that's what the tank was filled up with. It's drinking water, perfectly good drinking water. If you don't have those little pucks or little bottles with the blue stuff in them in the back of your tank, and you happen to be stuck in the city and you happen to be needing some water that's good to drink, the water in the back of the tank, it's usually pretty good to drink. It's at least as good as the city water was to begin with. Just in case. That's an emergency sort of thing. Not something that you want to live on. Anyway, we're flushing perfectly good water. Whenever it comes down, falls on the roof. Now, some people catch it in rain barrels, but there are places where that's illegal. They don't let you do it. The Water for Every Garden video I did a couple weeks ago will show you how to go about setting up your garden so that the pathway that you walk in, because you needed to have some place to walk, is also a place that stores water for you and it's available to your plants. That's another useful way to be able to not have to pump or require water for other essential things. Let's see. Okay, we talked about the seeds. A lot of prepper channels have affiliate links for buying seeds. Buy seeds wherever you can. Buy plants wherever you can. I keep on talking about you need to buy trees. You need to get trees. You need to plant trees. We're working on developing nursery stocks so you can buy them from me, but you don't have to wait until I've got them to buy them. Buy them. I don't care where you buy them from. Get them planted. Get your food supply in, because although it's great to have a stockpile of things in your basement, that stockpile will run out. Once you've got trees and perennials planted that you can take care of, that you can maintain, and will maintain themselves, you've got that for life. And if enough people are prepped that way, then maybe there won't be an emergency. Think about that one. If the lights go out, oh well, we just don't have electrical power. Who cares? The New Madrid fault went, and the bridges across the Mississippi River are all out. It's going to take months to rebuild them. Oh, well. No big deal. And you can walk around while people are preaching doom and gloom with a smile on your face because you don't have anything to worry about. Other than what everybody has to worry about. I mean, we're all going to die someday. No biggie. Everybody does it. Solar panels, silvestris, so you can still get 2 from Amazon for $159. 2 what? Oh, 100-watt panels? That's not bad. Yeah, because this one here was like 89 for 1, so 2 for $159 would be a little bit of a discount. I don't need a whole lot in all actuality. This one panel is going to be more than enough for what I really actually need at the moment. Now, whenever I get whenever I have some larger fish ponds going and I want to be able to circulate the water, I might need to add a couple more. But for the moment, that's all I need. Yep. And yeah, it's super cheap. You don't have to go out and buy a $2,500 emergency solar generator in order to have electrical power. Just think about what you really need the electrical power for. I need to run the air pump from my aquatics, and I might want to have some lights. Well, my yard lights, they're 12-volt DC. The wiring for those is 16 gauge wire, is lamp wire. It's pretty cheap too. So as long as you're keeping it in that 12-volt range and you're doing the small things with solar, having backup solar for just a few basic operations is not expensive at all. But a lot of people price themselves out of having that opportunity because they think, well, I've got to get the whole house system. You don't need a whole house system. And if you want to, and if you got the money for it, sure, go for it. Nothing wrong with that. But you don't need it. Mary is saying, I just got to say, best gardening channel. Let me just, we can put a little star there too. That kind of reminds me to come back and look at it later. But she says, I just got to say, best gardening channel ever is Bake a Leg for small space. And that is very, very true. All right, let me move the star there. Very, very true. Melody is up there in Pennsylvania. She's growing in a small backyard. I think she grew, if you're still with us, Melody, what was it, about 5,000 pounds last year? Just an enormous amount of food. Now, it wasn't all calories and proteins, but there was 5,000 pounds of produce out of a small backyard. I mean, not big, small backyard. And she uses square foot gardening with raised beds. So if you want to know about square foot gardening, check out Melody at Bake a Leg and Lexington Homestead. Good channel. If you look at the on my channel main page in the section, I think entitled "Would you like to know more?" I list a series of featured channels. She's one of those featured channels. Let's see. Heterodox is saying, check the price of cobalt and lithium from January 2021 till now. Oh, yeah, especially now. Yeah, cobalt, lithium, and tantalum are rare earth metals that are used to make those lithium-ion batteries. Pricey stuff, expensive batteries, and there's a lot of human misery attached to the acquiring of those particular materials. So try to avoid them. It's for a home operation. I don't need to have a super dense battery, a lead acid battery, the old car battery. It works just fine. John. I said, living exactly healthy. Okay. Freezers. Yeah, we went over that. Light communication. Having some way to communicate might be useful. Not everybody needs to have a shortwave radio, a ham radio. Somebody in your neighborhood probably ought to have one. But it would be a good idea to let's cover this thing here. It would be a good idea to have some way of communicating with your neighbors. You have talked to your neighbors about prepping, right? Being able to signal them whenever you need help, maybe have a bell that you can ring, maybe have a prearranged code so they know what that ding 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 means. Okay, I need some help over here. Ding 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 means emergency, come over right away. That's where whatever you have worked out. Having a bell at every house that can be rung in a neighborhood is a great way of being able to alert the neighbors in case of emergencies, so that if somebody is coming in and causing trouble, you don't just have to stand against them yourself. You have the weight of your entire neighborhood behind you. Have you gone out and talked to your neighbors yet? You need to go out and talk to your neighbors. Mary is saying, ice storm, what year was that? That was 2007. 2007. That's whenever we lost power for 1 month over here. 1 month without power. And it's like a little vacation. It was just fine. We had candles and lanterns for light, and floor furnace for heat. It still worked through that. Of course, we have gas for the stove. So I had a pot of chili on, and the neighbors from around the neighborhood that didn't have any power and didn't have any way to stay warm, and they didn't have any way to cook food, came by. One of them brought a bag of beans with them, and since we still had plenty of beans, we weren't suffering, right? Because this is 2007. We started prepping back in 2005. We weren't hurting for anything, so we put it in the pantry. And then a couple of years ago, I pulled it up, looked at it, and went, "Huh, these are the Anasazi beans that we got back in 2007. I don't know how old they were, but they're like ancient now." So we planted them and germinated them. I've got some offspring of those that we're growing in the garden now. It's kind of fun. Let's see. I'm going to investigate that and see, because you piqued my curiosity. I don't know what the most protein per watt is whenever you're having to supply supplemental power. If I have a well enough developed ecosystem, I might not have to circulate the water. If there's enough aquatic plants in there to provide oxygen, if there's enough aquatic plants in there to pull up the nitrate from the aquatic system, I might be able to get by without using a filter and an aerator. Might be. Not guaranteeing that I would, but might be. But I will definitely investigate that. Hamsters for protein. Hamsters, chinchillas, rabbits. Well, anything that you can grow and feed in the space that you have. If you're having to rely upon the feed coming from somewhere else, that's a weakness in your food supply. And plenty of people grow chickens, but they don't have the feed that they feed to the chickens. They have to go and get it and bring it in. So they've got chickens, and they can get eggs as long as they can keep the chickens fed. That could be a problem. Freshwater shrimp eat algae. And so all I have to do is provide enough surface area and light for the algae to grow, and I've got food for my shrimp. My shrimp can feed other fish. Not to mention you can eat the shrimp too. They're tiny, but an 1.5 inch shrimp, say dozen, 2 dozen in your soup, is still going to be pretty darn tasty. Okay, this is the point where I was talking about the guy that I watched this channel from like 2 years ago. I was talking about how much land you need, and he was saying 5 acres per person. And I thought that was incredibly, it's insane. And Mary's asking this question: was he doing row crops? Yeah, I'm thinking that's exactly what he was doing. He was thinking row crops, because a lot of people have the idea that I'm going to start a garden, and they're going to go out there and I'm going to till up the ground and I'm going to plant everything in nice little rows, and we're going to add fertilizer and pesticide and irrigate and everything else. And you spend a lot of effort. It's going to be fine. somewhere in the middle here. All right. So this is very, very close to being balanced, right? Very easy to hold on to. But if I move away from the point where everything is balanced, I have to expend more effort to hold on to the stick. And if I move further and further away from being balanced, it becomes impossible to maintain. Now, this is, of course, what happens with the farming systems, the agricultural systems that we have. What is being done for large-scale agriculture is not done because it's the best and most efficient system. It's not done because it produces the most food. It's done because it's the easiest way for a small number of people with automation to produce a large amount of food. In all actuality, your automated modern monoculture system is producing enough food for 2 to 3 people per acre. That's all they're getting, about 2 to 3 people per acre. You can produce more food than that in an acre. You can produce enough food for 12 or more, maybe even as many as 20 people per acre. And now I'm thinking probably a lot more than that if you're going to be using something like a riparian system, going from a silver, maybe a combination of silver pasturage plus alley cropping plus riparian. So you'd have your islands in between canals with the trees at the edges of them, your banks leading down with area for grazing. This is edge that something like a sheep could go along. You have ducks for the eggs. In the canals, you're raising fish, prawns, shrimp, whatever you've got. Plus your regular vegetables in the center of the islands. And you have fuel, you've got shelter, you've got fibers, you've got protein, you've got everything you need in large amounts, and the fertility just keeps on coming. Never runs out of water. It's a really good way of doing things. There is a place where there is a kind of a similar agricultural system in the world today. I didn't know that it was still in existence, but I was looking around for it, and I found I think it was Verge Permaculture that did a review of it. May have been Verge. But it's called the Chinampas. It's in Mexico City. Most of it has been drained and city built up over it, but there is a small amount of it that's still there, and you can go and you can see what it looked like. Absolutely amazing system. Now, this was done on a shallow lake, and what I was suggesting was doing it with the river systems after these dams fail, instead of going and rebuilding those monstrosities again and swallowing up useful land. We take the silt sediment that's built up from where the dam was previously, and we use this for farming in. And we just go ahead and cut the channels back, let the river flow, let it flood when it's going to flood, but we build up the spaces that we live on higher than the flood's ever going to come to. And then you're always within 15, 20 yards of where everything you need, your food, your shelter, your fuel, all of it. Anyway, better way of living. Doesn't require a whole lot of fossil fuel burning to do either, especially if you're building geo-sheltered housing. Anyway, yeah, John Jewes says you can grow all your food on like a quarter of an acre. It doesn't take a whole lot. Let's see. Grow a lot of calories in small spaces if you grow the right things. Absolutely. You know, those seed vaults that you see that are, whenever you're watching a prepping channel, like, here, you can get this emergency seed vault. And people get sold on these things. They're way too expensive. They get them, and the idea is you stash this away with the rest of your stuff that you're stashing away in your basement or your bunker or wherever it is that you're prepping for doomsday, and you forget about it. You figure, okay, well, whenever the poo hits the fan, we're going to break out the seeds and we're going to plant it. We're going to grow it, and you've got a few corn seeds, you get a few bean seeds, you get a few pea seeds, you get this, that. You get a few vegetables that you can plant, but this is not something that you live on. Not only is it not something you live on that you spent way too much money for, you don't know what to do with it, because you haven't been spending the time practicing. And you've got to spend the time practicing gardening. If you are not gardening, you are not serious about prepping at all. I am not kidding, guys. You can't just walk out with a bag full of seeds and start dropping them in the ground and expect to be able to feed yourself or your family. You have to practice at it. You have to figure out what's going to grow well for you in your area. Because guess what? Not everything that grows well for me is going to grow well for you. And not everything that you grow is going to grow well for me. So you have to practice at it and figure out what you need to do to grow where you are. You got a bug out location that you're going to travel to? Have you been practicing gardening at your bug? Can't talk. Have you been practicing gardening at your bug out location? You haven't? You're not serious about prepping. Just saying. All right. Okay, Sassafras Red says it. Prepping is a beginning step to get to harvesting your own food. Yeah, it's storing up the stuff, getting your stash of batteries and solar panels and ammunition and spare tools and knives and maybe some antibiotics and your stash of food, canned food, dried food, MREs, whatever. But yeah, that's a starting place. That's just the very, very beginning. That's enough to get you to survive long enough for your harvest. But if you're not practicing your gardening, then once that's gone, it's gone. You don't have anything to replace it with. If the emergency is not over, then that's it. You're done for. We learned this lesson the hard way. Anything that's high in acid content in a steel can only has a shelf life of maybe 2 years, and after that, it goes bad. The acid in the food will eat through the steel, break the seals, and then your food spoils. So spaghetti, although spaghetti keeps for next to forever, as far as I can tell, spaghetti sauce doesn't. Let's see. John's saying freeze dryer if you can afford it. I don't know. I mean, if you like having freeze-dried stuff, get a freeze dryer and freeze dry your own stuff. It's a lot cheaper in the long run to freeze dry your own if you're going to have a lot of freeze-dried stuff around. But really only get it if you like freeze-dried stuff, and that's what you like to eat. If you like to eat freeze-dried stuff, get a freeze dryer. It's cheaper. If you don't like to eat freeze-dried stuff, don't get a freeze dryer and don't buy freeze-dried stuff. It's that easy. Don't do it. I mean, why would you want to? Yuck. Just grow stuff that you can store and save that you like to eat. Sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, winter squash, corn keeps really well, beans keep really well. Grow that stuff, keep it, rotate your supply every year. Don't worry about it. You don't need a freeze dryer. So get one if you want one. If you like the way freeze dried food tastes, and some people do, go for it. I've heard that freeze dried candy is wonderful. I don't think you'd be surviving on freeze dried candy, but hey. Let's see. Self-defense trees. I do have some, by the way. Attack trees. Specifically, things like black locust. Actually, black locust is a nice tree. It's a pioneer tree. It likes to put its roots down and spread, so it forms this little net underground, kind of like a web. So if you have really sandy soil, black locust, like as a hedge around your property, is not a bad idea. It's going to send out runners everywhere, and you're going to have little volunteer locust trees popping up in your yard constantly. So you'll be constantly having to go and weed them out because you don't want a whole lot of locust trees growing everywhere. Right around the perimeter is nice because they have sharp thorns that practically reach out and grab you. You can walk by and they'll cut you as you're walking by. Not something that people are going to want to try to force their way through in any case. Have those planted so that people will be inclined to go through predictable pathways to get to where you are. I mean, this is actually how we have the yard set up. I don't have a fence on the front yard. You may notice this if you've looked out there. I don't have a fence from the road to my front door. There's no fence. But everything is set up to control the path that people have to take if they're going to go from the road to the front door. There's two ways they can go. And either way they're going, going to have to take their time going around obstacles to get to the house. And on the way, they're going to be tripping motion sensors. And other than right now, whenever I have the lights on inside here so that you can see me properly because we're doing a live stream, other than times like this at nighttime, it is darker inside than the person outside standing in those motion sensors is going to be at, which means they can't see in, but I can see them perfectly. I know exactly where they are. They don't know where I am. Yeah. And then there's a dog barking at them at the same time. I have not had any problems since we set up that sort of system with people coming onto the property at times that they shouldn't be coming onto the property and doing things they shouldn't be doing. Put it that way. But good fences make good neighbors. Black locusts are nice. Some of the obstacles that are out there are not black locusts, but they are thorny. For example, we have Szechuan pepper trees and Sancho pepper trees, which produce spices for us and are also very, very sharp and thorny. Elaeagnus multiflora has little thorns on it as well. Siberian pea shrub, small thorns also. We've got a few thorny plants that if you're bumbling around in the dark and you don't know where you're going, you're going to wind up getting kitty. Don't nip at me like that. Jeez. You're going to wind up getting hung up on something. And perhaps have enough time to rethink your life choices. So that's what's resident. You take my MRE, but you can never take my tree. Hey, you know what? Your life is more important than a stash of stuff. So if you've got your property set up where your food production is in the ground and growing, and it's not just an annual crop, it's perennial. It's something that's going to be there whether you're there to tend it and take care of it or not. You see a big pack of people coming, they're getting ready to conduct some sort of a raid. Hey, you know what? Your neighbor down the block was banging that bell going, hey, they're coming. Grab your stuff, get out, go hang out in the woods for a couple of days, wait until the scavengers pass by, and then you come back to your house and sure, yeah, maybe they took your supply of toilet paper. Oh, well, you were growing mullein, right? You're alive. Your food's still growing. You're not going to starve. You're going to be just fine. Mel says, when I first moved here, there was a new place up there in Pennsylvania. First thing I did was plant raspberries, 2 apple trees, and 2 blueberry bushes. Very nice. We can't grow the apple trees here, so I have to grow pears instead. Oh yeah. So people who are just joining, we finally got them. We finally got our first flush of wine caps. Look at that. Woo-hoo-hoo. This isn't all of them. This is just one small clump. we now have, I think it's for every 10 square foot or so, it's like 25 pounds per year or 25 pounds per month, something like that. We have a lot of wine cap mushrooms. I don't know what I'm going to do with them all. It's probably going to dehydrate a bunch of them and make some instant chili or something. But that's yet another food source that just comes up out of the ground periodically. It's there. If you're there in time to go harvest it when it's available, you've got it. But if you're some sort of a wandering raider or a member of the Golden Horde that doesn't even know what to look for, they know food looks like this and it comes in these, right? Well, okay, fine. Let them take these. They were just a convenience anyway. And if you're anything like me, you probably have these sitting around that are 10, 20 years old and you've never touched them and probably never will. But they're fine to hand out to somebody who's hungry. Says, will you help me, please? I'm hungry. Sure, yeah. Here, have some food. Have some beans. Have some rice. Enjoy. So Mary was saying back then that box, there was a box here with MREs on it. These things, yeah. These things. I think we pulled 1 or 2 of them out and ate them and tried them. And these things are just nasty. And there's, I think, 15. No, it was a dozen. There was 12 of them in here. More than $10 a piece for this little cardboard box with an MRE in it. And it's got this plastic you've got to do something with. It doesn't taste that great. The peanut butter might be okay. The crackers are kind of dry and nasty. This is a really expensive way to eat food that isn't really good. Plant a tree. It's less expensive. You'll get more food out of it. It'll taste better, and you won't have all this plastic waste to dispose of when you're done. Plant some trees. Pecan trees, hazelnuts, chestnuts, walnuts, pears, apples, jujubes. I know jujubes. Plums, cherries, peaches, all that stuff. Good food, tasty food, good for you. Comes back every year for your life, for your child's life, for your grandchildren's lives. Great grandchildren, probably them too. Imagine the trees you can buy with $100. John's saying mushrooms good for protein, vitamin D, like portobello. There you go. But Evelyn says they inoculated last fall. Only one came up in Central Florida. Maybe next year. Yeah, they may not flush very well your first year. Ours sure didn't. And it seems like the more moisture you can keep in the area where you've got your wine cap spawn in, the better your chances of getting a flush are. Shade seems to help as well. So shade, moisture, and give it time. Give it time. Also, don't plant competing mushroom species. This is the big lesson that we learned when I was making large 10 by 10 beds for mushrooms. I tried mixing wine cap and king oyster in there together, and the mycelium ran great. They broke the wood chips down lickety split like nobody's business. I mean, fast, like full compost within a year. Perfect stuff. I'm using it in the garden right now. But we only got a minor flush of the wine cap out of there because apparently the oyster was competing with them so much that they didn't flush to the point where they could have, and then they just consumed everything, and then I was left with compost, which is fine. I wanted the compost, but if you're trying to get the mushrooms, only one strain. Stropharia is very forgiving. You don't necessarily have to sterilize your substrate to get Stropharia to grow, which is one of the reasons why I really recommend Stropharia. But give it some time. Make sure it stays moist. Keep it shady. Keeping it moist in Florida is going to be rough. Mulch heavy, and try to have some way to keep your water on the property, on the ground. Developing a good canopy layer may help with that too. You drop more chips on the beds, yeah. John says, wish I knew more about growing mushrooms safely. Death caps thing here. So we're talking the fly agaric, or the destroying angels. Amanita, what is that one? Amanita agarica. Yep. But those are pretty easy to identify. The King Stropharia also very easy to identify. The red caps are a dead giveaway. The ring, the annulus ring, whenever the mushroom cap spreads and it tears away, so you have that little frill there. No basal cup, and a purple spore print. You got those, King Stropharia. Especially if you inoculated with King Stropharia, it's easy to tell that's what it was, and you won't mistake that for a destroying angel. Destroying angel has an entirely different look. Let's see. We were talking here about microphones. I need to get a better mic. Not just for doing live streams with. I had one that was okay, but it didn't last long. I need a decent one for doing live streams, and I also need a decent one for going on the camera. Where did I put the camera? I was behind the green screen. I've got one on there right now that I think is kind of okay at noise cancellation. We get a lot of wind, and it's really hard to do a decent presentation during the months that the wind is blowing here on the prairie. We get a lot of wind, and it's hard to get good, clear audio when the wind's blowing. Let's see. Oh, so if you're following what Mark was saying there, Mark used to be a physics teacher. He's fun to talk to. Let's see. Sasper says, what happens when we run out of wood chips? Hopefully by the time we run out of wood chips, our trees are producing enough leaves that we don't need them anymore. But for for future reference, check out some Jeff Lawton stuff in succession planting, pioneer species. Um, there are techniques you can use to develop that organic matter by growing it on site, and then it takes a little bit longer than importing your fertility from outside. Wood chips are a convenience, but it can be done without them. Once you have enough organic matter coming down from the trees that you're growing, you don't need the wood chips anymore. Let's see. Evelyn was saying she got a few mushrooms a few years ago, vacuum packed, and they're still good. Dehydrated, vacuum packed. Ideally, they're going to be produced in such abundance that you just eat the food that comes on in the season that it's on, and that's all you do. You're hungry, go eat. The food's in the garden all the time, year round. Oh, I should have grabbed. I didn't grab it. Yeah, I know, Kitty. I didn't grab it. I should have grabbed one of those cannas. We're in the midst of planting our canna indica out right now. I had them stored in a tub inside, covered with peat moss, and we're in the process of spreading them around. Now, those things, whew, wow. I know they'll grow up into zone 5. You'll need to bring them in during the winter. Bring the roots in during the winter. Store them in moistened peat moss, the same as you would your turmeric and your ginger, or your elephant ears if you're growing taro. For calories, they just can't be beat. They're better than potatoes. They've got a little bit of dietary fiber in them, so they sit on your stomach and fill you up better than potatoes too. Take absolutely no effort to grow. Pests don't bother them. They just grow. The roots get massive. We're talking 20, 30 pounds per plant in a 2 square foot area. As long as your soil is decently loosened up, they grow just fine. A little bit of shade doesn't bother them. The flowers that they produce are edible as well. We're talking canna lily here, Canaceae. Large roots. And I should have brought some in because right now I'm out there planting them around, and I think we've got about maybe 200-300 days worth of calories just from those. And that's just I need something to fill space. Here, let's throw a canna in there. Okay. If nothing else, it's going to provide food for the bees and the pollinators and the hummingbirds and the butterflies and everything else. It's going to look pretty. People will walk by, look at it, not realize it's food. That sort of fun stuff. And I can feed a small army off of it. All right. Now John's saying it's the work that people are afraid of. Oh, yeah, I guess. I mean, W-O-R-K, the 4-letter word. Heterodox is saying, which channel do you like best? That's a loaded question. I like my channel best. Well, hey, I'm conceited, but at least I'm honest. Oh, different channels are better for different things. That sounds like the cop-out answer, but it's also the true one. Green Greg's is nice. Bake a leg and let's dig it is very good if you're interested in square foot gardening, by the way. The Survival Gardening channel with David the Good. I think that's the very first thing in my list of featured channels. After that, I think Scott Head is another good one to look at. He's down there in South Texas, close to the Gulf, on that black gumbo clay. He has to grow and raise gardens, and he does the same thing that I'm doing. Is for the gopher-proof beds, which is using cement blocks as the border for his raised bed. They're cheap. They last forever. If you don't like the way they're set up, you can pick them up and move them. No big deal. I'm using them, of course, because I have that hardware cloth underneath and it keeps the gophers from getting up and eating my onions, my garlic and stuff like that. I don't want the gophers eating my onions and garlic. It's hard to trap gophers. I've been trying. They'd probably be pretty tasty if I haven't been able to trap them. Squirrels, on the other hand, that's easy to trap. Bake a leg is, unless Digga says, oh, here, don't show your preps. Don't show your preps. Don't show your preps. Don't show your preps. You don't necessarily have to show everybody everything you have, but it's a good idea to tell people to prep, and it's a good idea to tell people what to prep. It wouldn't make any logical sense to be telling people that they should be prepping and telling them what they should be prepping, and then say, but I'm not prepping that. You see what I'm saying? Giving your neighbors a heads up, encouraging them, riding their aspirations. Okay, I might have to bleep that out. Nagging them a little bit, getting them on board. Having good relationships with your neighbors and having neighbors who are also prepared is probably one of the best things you can possibly do. And if you're not discussing prepping with them, then you're going to be leaving yourself exposed and vulnerable at the time whenever you need people. All right. Sastra says that we prepare against hard times. Plus, we have a possible 10 human plus showing up. Yeah, there are a lot of people that say, "Hey, if trouble hits, I'm going to come over to your house." And I tell them all the same thing. Sure, not a problem. Be prepared to work. You'll be on a shovel, either digging a hole or filling it in. You might be on a rifle. You might be on a rake. You might be planting. You might be carrying water. You might be pumping water. You might be building fires, stoking fires, chopping wood. Who knows what you're going to wind up doing? But there's a lot of work that goes into staying alive, and I'm not going to be doing it all myself. Most of the preps that I have are not the kind of preps that you just open up with a can opener. I mean, don't get me wrong. We do have some, right? But most of it is food that is out there growing, and you have to go harvest it in the appropriate season. But so yeah, we might have some people show up. And if you've got a person that you've told, hey, come here whenever things get, I want you to come here, I want your family to come here. There's a good chance that there's going to be a few people that come along with them, plus ones or maybe plus twos or threes. You never know. Generally, I'd say make sure you have enough to provide for yourself and your family, and a couple of friends, and maybe the neighbors down the street, which is an awful lot, but it doesn't turn out to be all that much in reality if you've got neighbors that you've already informed that they need to be prepping, that you've stayed on them and made sure that they're prepping, and said, okay, so what did you do this week? What did you buy this week? Hey, I see you got a new car. What did you get in the way of preps? Here, let me show you this new thing I found. This was a good price. You should get this too. Being prepared is not a solo sport. Love that neighbor as you love your steak. Tell you what, you can always wind up eating a neighbor in a pinch, right? They may be the same thing. There was one of those live streams earlier today. I said, hey, if it's the end of the world as we know it, and I'm trading pork products, they're not pork. You're saying our crazy neighbor doesn't prep, but he's always watching. Actually, he does. He's been working on some stuff. He doesn't have a garden. He raises geese, and so he doesn't have any yard for growing food in other than the geese. Geese are food. But he's also been doing fun things like practicing his food preservation, learning how to store meat by rolling it and packing it in the salt dried pork and stuff like that. He's been figuring out how to do this stuff, so he's not completely useless. Aww. Hey, the end of the world as we know it is not supposed to be a scary thing. It's supposed to be an exciting opportunity. Because quite frankly, there are some things that we can't get out from under any other way. Unless you're one of these people that wants to start a revolution. Like those ever turn out well. Some people want something for nothing. That's true. I like this. Berries is the most viable resources of paradise. Yeah, my thought on this is through the practice of agroforestry and expanding to that point of abundance where you're going beyond your borders and planting everywhere to the point where the idea of somebody going hungry is just ridiculous. It's ludicrous. Why are you going hungry? Are you too lazy to reach out your hand and take the food that's growing right there? Because that's about the only way that you're going to be starving. This stuff is so easy to do once you get going, and you can propagate everything and then spread it. Sure, I'm operating an online nursery. You can buy your plant starts from me. You can buy them anywhere. You can go harvest them in the wild if you want to. But once you've got the knowledge behind how to go about propagating everything and you're doing it, you run out of space to plant things. Once you've run out of spaces to plant things, what do? Plant in your neighbor's yard. Plant that bare spot there at the corner down by the street. It's like, oh, that's a nice place for a pear tree or something, right? When we get to the point where food is so common that all you have to do is reach out, take it, eat it. You're not going to be worried about, people know that I'm prepping. Okay. So it's no big deal. All right. This is true. I was very depressed earlier today. I know it's hard to imagine me getting depressed. But I drove out to our greenway site. It's about 12, 13 miles away to get another load of mulch because I'm expanding that water for every garden concept to our front yard. Front yard where we have a pecan tree, a couple of hazelnut trees. We've got all the asparagus and elderberry, strawberries, cannas, daylilies. Oh, we're growing dahlias this year too. The dahlias in there. What else are we growing? Szechuan pepper tree, as mentioned before. Whenever you're running through the yard, trying to work your way through the maze to get to the front door, you're going to catch yourself on the pepper tree. And I'll also have an audio clue that there's somebody out there that shouldn't be there because they're going to be yelling bloody murder because they just cut themselves. Anyway, I figure expanding that into the front yard would be a good idea. So I got another load of mulch, came back and was digging out the trenches and everything to put those wood chips in. And while I was out there, or while I was on my way out there, I deliberately looked around everywhere I could, kept my eyes on the road for the most part, so I wasn't a hazardous driver. But I was looking for evidence that people were growing gardens. And I was not seeing gardens in people's yards, people. We're failing. We're failing somehow because no matter how much I talk about it, I'm not seeing those gardens. Now, I know some of you out there are planning. Some of you out there are getting really prepped. They're taking things seriously. But just driving through town and looking, I did not see any evidence that most of my neighbors are working towards self-reliance. It's almost as if they're listening to these popular 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 subscriber prepper channels that tell them, hey, get your Blue Eddy, get your Berkey, stack up on the freeze-dried food, and you're going to be just fine. They probably have little Mylar packs of seed vault seeds somewhere in their basement that they think they're going to be able to pull out and feed themselves with. This is depressing. So if anything, talk to your neighbors about prepping. Talk to them about getting serious. Talk to them about actually starting to grow a garden. It's more important than you might think. All right, let me see here. Mark said start collecting surgical gear and bandage suture materials and alcohol. It's a good thing to do. We've got quite a bit of that. I have enough to treat a couple of wounds, but I can't run a hospital. Grow. Absolutely. And here's the thing, yeah, Silvestris says most of our family don't have enough resources to get more for themselves. This is one of the things. If you're going out and you're buying cans of food, if you're buying MREs and stuff like that, right? You spend a lot of money to get this. This is $2 for basically a meal for one person. This will probably get you through a day. You spend that, it takes up the space. You either need to get a bigger house to store all your preps in, or you just have to accept the fact that you're not going to have that much. If you're growing your food, if you've planted your food, and that's part of your regular everyday life, the habit that you have is I'm going to grow my own food and I'm going to eat what I grow. That stuff duplicates itself. The first year that we got canna lilies, I got, I think, 20 altogether, 20 little roots. And they were little. I mean, about the size of my pinky when I planted them. Little things. I planted those 20 roots in a row along a 60-foot section of garden, about 4 foot apart. By the end of the year, whenever I started digging them up, I realized, oh my gosh, I had thought, based upon the size of the roots, I mean, tiny things whenever I got them, I had thought that was about the only size that they were going to get. Daylily tubers are small too. They're edible as well, by the way, just in case you didn't know. Daylilies, Hemerocallis fulva, any member of the Hemerocallis genus, incidentally, are edible. The tubers that they produce are also edible. So if you have them growing in a shady location, they're going to grow up kind of like an ornamental grass, but they won't flower. But the tubers underground will still be produced. So you can still dig them up to get those edible tubers. That's calories. It's calories and it's hidden calories because a lot of people don't realize that that's food right there. It's a vegetable. But if you do get the flowers, you get the flowers. Those are bloated down with nutrition as well. Better tasting than lettuce. You'll love them. Anyway, these cannas, when I got them, little tiny roots. Apparently the nursery that have been growing them in containers. And in containers, they don't get very big. I grew some in a container and I got the same result. We got those little tiny roots out of the container. I was like, oh, well, that's nice. When I was planning on, I was thinking, well, I'm just going to get the edible flowers. It's going to be it. And then having planted them in the ground and giving them enough space to grow, whenever I went to go pull them up and spread them around, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm getting 20 or more pounds of food for each plant. And this is a 2 foot by 2 foot square or 2 foot by 2 foot area. 20 pounds after you peel off it has a thick skin on the outside, the root does. After you peel that off, you boil it, you cut it up, stir fry it, whatever you're going to do to cook it. Fills you up good. You've got enough food for a person for 2 or 3 days for each one of those plants that you grew in a small area. So for calories, not hard to grow. And you break them apart and you spread them around. And I was getting 15, 20, maybe even 30 new plant starts out of each one that I started. So I'd take a little bit of the root and go, okay, there we go. That's the next plant. That's the plant for next year. Here is doubling my production. And I still got 19 pounds of food for each one. So once you get the initial bit, it's free. It multiplies itself for free. All you need is time and effort, and you got all you need. So perennial resources multiply. That's all I'm trying to say. Everything multiplies to the point where scarcity is not a problem anymore. And Vicky was late. Prepping resource, John says attitude. Absolutely. Positive mental attitude will get you far. Yeah, see. No, saying someone in Germany said they're being told 1 pack of chicken per family. So that's most definitely coming here. If you can find chicken at all in the grocery stores eventually, right? We were talking earlier about cities, unnatural conditions, people living on top of each other, rats living in crowded conditions just go berserk. Mankind is a social animal. We're meant to be in communities with other people, but we're not meant to be living on top of each other. We need our space. We all need our space. Well, one of the nice things is there is enough space on planet Earth for all of us to have plenty of space. Just get out of the cities, people. There's nothing there that you need. Nothing. Absolutely nothing you need in a city. I'm about as close to a city as I need to be. I'm on the last street on the outskirts of town. StopTheDrugWar.org. Ron Helton says, once the collapse happens, they are beyond help and you might be on the menu. We compost everything. And it's hard to get to me without me getting to you first. Somebody's on my property and that dog is barking and they've hit the motion sensors and the lights are on. They're illuminated. If I happen to appear and they see me, what they may not realize is I've got neighbors watching them too. And I know how well my neighbors can shoot. Let me see here. Once again, community. Be on good terms with your neighbors. Talk to them about prepping. Maybe get some coordination going. If you're all using the same kind of ammo, you can swap in an emergency, right? Okay, want to be prepper says, I don't know if you watch. I do. I've seen Patera. She said the same thing recently. It's time to get serious about prepping. It really is. And if you live out in the country, it's not really prepping. It's just life. It's just life. Ideally, you're going to have these habits develop to the point where emergency appears and it's like, oh yeah, it's Tuesday. Oh, there's a snowstorm. We can't go anywhere. Oh well. Let's just enjoy the fireplace or enjoy the wood stove. Have a mug of coffee or a mug of hot cocoa. Maybe cook up a pot of chili. Bust out some of these old books. Read a few stories to the kids. Play a couple of games. I know there are people out there panicking, but you don't have to be one. And every person that you've talked to about prepping is another person, especially if they took your advice, that isn't out there panicking, and they're not a threat to you anymore. They're a part of that community that's helpful. I know there are those people that have played a lot of Call of Duty or Halo or something like that, and they think, well, all I need is my knife and my gun, and I can take what I want. Yeah, they're not going to live very long. We're going to say maybe not beyond spiritual help. I will pray for you. But when they're physically hungry, you cannot reason. Yeah, people get hungry, they get desperate. There's something I've mentioned before. We're going to go long. We've already gone 2.5 hours, so we're not quite done talking yet. I don't know if I mentioned it on this channel before or not, but the United States had a revolution. I'm talking about the first one, not the second one. Well, I guess the second one too. That was somewhat unique. Most of the time, whenever there's a revolution, there are a set of factors that exist: corruption of the officials, financial instability. These are two of the major things. New and radical ideas being prominent, and number 4, starvation. Because people can put up with a certain amount of corruption. As a matter of fact, we kind of expect it. We all know that the politicians, by and large, are a bunch of crooks and they can't be trusted. Yet, for some reason, people keep on going out there and voting for them anyway. Why? I don't know. Vote for the less of two evils, you're going to get evil. That's all I'm saying. But it's like locusts or blister beetles or aphids. They show up. They take a certain percentage of the produce, but you get kind of used to them. There's a certain amount that you tolerate. Then there's a certain amount where you break out the pesticide, right? As long as they're not taking too much, you tolerate them. What's the other thing? Financial instability. Everything goes in cycles, right? Boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust, especially if you're using fiat currency and you're inflating the monetary supply. Nothing new here. Corrupt officials, financial instability. We've had that stuff before. America's been living with it for about 233 years. Not a big deal. Radical ideas. Well, yeah, in America, radical ideas are kind of our stock and trade. We're this crazy country where people say what's on their minds and it's okay. There are other places in the world where you're not really encouraged to speak out by the officials. Now, here in America, we're starting to have a lot of cancel culture sort of stuff where other people in the general populace will try to stop you from saying what's on your mind. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Radical new ideas. Something we're fairly commonly used to. But something we're not used to in the United States is starvation. And when that comes, there's going to be some revolution, I think. And it's happened in other places around the world. France had everything up to. Then when people started starving, that's whenever they revolted. Kings lost their heads. So yeah, whenever the kids look at you and say, "Mommy, Daddy, I'm hungry. What's for dinner?" and you've got nothing, then people get really motivated. The idea is we need to get to them now, way ahead of time, preferably decades ahead of time, and get this idea in their head. Hey, start working on developing an environment around you that will feed you, and you will never have this problem. Try to nip it in the bud. Been trying to nip it in the bud for a few years now. Maybe right now, maybe there's more people who are primed to begin listening. Hopefully, hopefully they'll begin listening. That's right. Nobody's coming to save you. That's a terrifying thought, right? Some people are afraid of death. Marcus is like, I'm afraid I'm going to survive. The world doesn't know it's going to come to an end, and I'm going to be alive going, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Well, this is the reason why we want to develop these habits so that emergencies happen. The end of the world, as we know what happens, and it's Tuesday. It's no big deal, right? Now, a lot of people don't realize. In case of nuclear war, most of us are going to live. Like you're saying, those that refuse to deal with reality or do anything to help themselves are indeed beyond help. Yeah, because ultimately I cannot change you. I can't change the world. I can't change you. The only thing I can affect is me. And the same works for everybody. You've got to choose to make that decision for yourself and take action for yourself. And if you don't, yeah, I can't help you. Sometimes freeloaders come in handy. Well, if they don't want to starve, they'll take the end of a rake or a shovel. Yeah. There we go. Silvestris is saying, I feel a lot of preppers have not been in the true world. This is, I don't know. When was the last time I talked about the real world? I mean, the real world. The world that most of us live in, most of us, even me to a certain extent, is the world of money. It's the world where you reach into your pocket, you pull out a piece of plastic, you run it through a reader, beep, 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 and then you get your sack full of groceries. That's the world most people live in. This is an artificial construct. Only very recently in the world's history has this been possible that people could have this kind of a lifestyle where I can go out and I can cut people's hair, or I can deliver pizzas, or I can get on a phone and make phone calls saying, hey, would you like to buy our product? And this is how I make a living. Only really recently in the world's history do we have this sort of a setup. For most of the world's history, if you wanted to eat, you had to produce your own food. So yeah, most of the preppers are aware of the fact that there may be problems, but they're still going out and they're still buying the stuff and stockpiling the stuff and thinking, okay, well, now I'm prepared. Well, you're prepared for a minor emergency. You're prepared for a hiccup. You're prepared to not have to go to the grocery store for a few weeks whenever it's not a good time to go to the grocery store. That's normal. You should be doing that anyway. That's not really prepping. That's just stocking up ahead of time. He says, I refuse to put my finger at anyone else because I am pointing 3 back at me, right? The more you get into this, the more you realize you're not prepared. Not prepared at all. And that's okay. You're not going to be prepared. Okay. John's saying, yes, preppers are a little bit insecure. Preppers are typically what we think of as the prepper, is the person that tries to fight their insecurity and the lack of confidence by taking into control the things that they believe that they control. It's an attempt to have control. Realizing that control was an illusion to begin with is taking a step towards actual freedom. Now, that doesn't mean la-ti-da, we don't do anything, but it frees up your mind and allows you to have a positive mental attitude when you realize, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do everything myself. I'm just not. And that's okay, because nobody else is either. Mary's saying something important here. Mom has to be one of the wisest people that she knows, the wisest person I know, and she's a walking encyclopedia of information about gardening, but she's in a nursing home. So you visit your old people often before or stuff happen. She's using talk to text, so it's going to sound weird. Yeah, don't count those old folks out. They may know something very useful, like what works and what doesn't. Remember how we used to get things done back before we had the gadget or the contraption or the brand newfangled thingy. Knowing how to get things done whenever the newfangled thingies don't work and you can't repair them or replace them is kind of useful. Wannabe person says, I'm just listening while building my pantry shelving. There you go. I've noticed that neighbor needed to make a grocery store run. He goes to Sam's. He doesn't have a truck. He's got a sports car. Sports car is not really a great grocery getter whenever you're buying in bulk. So anyway, I gave him a ride to the Sam's Club. This is the first time I've been to Sam's in 20, 30 years, and I haven't been to Walmart since quite a while back. Let's put it that way. There used to be a Walton at Walmart. There's not a Walton at Walmart anymore. I don't shop there anymore. It's just not the kind of business that I do business with. But he goes to Sam's, so I give him a ride out to Sam's so he can get his stuff. And one of the things that he was looking for was those stainless steel shelves. They come in a box and stainless steel. You assemble them. We've got a couple over here that we use for a little grow station for vegetables in the winter, because sometimes it's nice to have vegetables in the winter indoors. Anyway, he was looking for those, and they were out. They didn't have any, none. So apparently, there's some people out there building up their preps, and they start with shelving. Those stainless steel shelves are nice, or you can build them, right? Silvestris says we use salvaged unistrut from a commercial job to build our pantry shelves, plant shelves, and storage shelves. Good stuff. So yeah, keep your eyes open for materials that you can salvage. Yeah, it might be a surprise what's available there for free. Just keep trying. Hey, one of my channel members that pays the most money for their membership every month is a troll. So it's okay. Mark said, found a place to plant the chestnuts and hazelnuts that he purchased last year. Mountaintop locations is nice. Mark's got a lot of really good stuff. We should all go to his place. Ooh, free watering rock flows. Nice. Tried to start an orchard last year. Not doing so hot, though, if I'm being honest. It takes a while. It takes a while for trees to grow, and you may discover that what you planted doesn't want to grow where you're at. That's one of the reasons why the sooner you get started at it, the better off you are. When you find out that, hey, you know what? Apples don't want to grow here. You can switch to something else like pears. Usually high elevation is better for apples. Lower elevation, pears do well. Pears still can do okay at high elevation too, but if you're down here where it's swampy, grow some pears instead. He says, we're good at troll catching and hugging. Yeah, I think that one that I was talking about on the Sadhguru website or on Sadhguru site, the fact that I was not reacting the way they anticipated sort of threw them off a bit. It's like, wait a minute. You're saying that you value my input instead of getting mad at me for being a troll? Yeah. Because I know if you come over to my channel and you start trolling, I'm going to get paid. Here's Confucius says, there was a great mountain that was once reduced to a level plain because every night one ant removed one grain of sand. Or, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Focus on what you can do now instead of the entire completed picture. Sure, sit down, figure out where you want to go so you can plan out your trip, but don't focus on all the steps along the way every day, all the time. Just focus on what you need to do now. You've got your plan. Just do the thing that you need to do now. Do the thing that's in front of you. Break everything down to simple, easy to accomplish tasks, and you're always moving forward. You're always making progress, and you're not depressed that you're not getting there. Do what you can, and then do the next thing you can, and so on and so forth. Ken says, I find myself buying a lot of tools along the way, some of which I haven't used since I was a teenager, farm raised, right? Basically, tools that can be used to make other tools in a pinch. That's a good idea. Nightmare window knocking. Oh, wow. Yeah. Who is that outside knocking on my window? I don't know. I can't see them. With somebody outside knocking on my window, a couple of things have already happened. One, I've had an auditory alert that there's somebody on the property that shouldn't be there or something's up. 2, they're illuminated. 3, I'm in the dark and they can't see me. 4, I'm armed. Have fun. Oh, also 5, they're hung up on something thorny. 6, they don't know where to go. 7, I have plenty of seasonings. I don't know who's having the nightmare. It's probably not me. They're saying you'd be amazed at how many mechanics come out to rescue my semi, but forget one tool. Guess what? I have a lot of tools I kind of use. Sort of just saying. Sometimes, yeah, it may not be necessarily that you're going to use the tool. Maybe you want to stockpile some tools that are going to be useful for somebody else. Maybe you always intended to figure out how to play the guitar, but you never got around to doing it. Oh. You learn how to play a couple chords or something, right? Yeah, that would probably get us demonetized if I actually sang that song. So we're not going to. Anyway, but have a few instruments lying around. Maybe somebody will come along and knows how to play the violin. Somebody knows how to play the oboe. Somebody knows how to play the saxophone. You got them at the pawn shop, right? They were cheap. You've got them stuck in the closet. And people need entertainment. Maybe you've got some machine shop tools that maybe you're not very good with, but you've got them. Somebody has the skills to use them. Hey, guess what? Now you've got a machinist. Now you can build new tools or other things that you might need. You never know. Keep your eyes open for opportunities. You might be able to find something that's going to be a benefit to somebody else later on, even if you don't benefit from it. That builds your community. And building your community, that helps you be properly prepared. Let's see here. I read Stranger in a Strange Land. If it's a question of somebody I care about starving or they get to eat me, then okay, yeah, they could probably eat me. I'm not going to guarantee I'm going to be all that great to eat. See, there you go. You guys are both in Illinois. Sassafras Red's got some experience. He can almost definitely help you out. That's building community, guys. Other people, best survival resource. People that know things that you don't. People that can do things that you can't. Yeah, and some of us, the only thing we're going to be good for is grabbing a shovel and lifting heavy stuff. We need people like that too. Vicky says, it's not so much that we need to be independent as we need to be independent of government handouts. Yeah, because the government never got anything that it didn't steal first. So if you're dependent upon government handouts, you're a thief. You're a thief by proxy. You're just a thief that's too cowardly to go out and steal it yourself. That's all it is. Whenever you go out and vote, what are you doing? You're asking for the government to commit violence for you on your behalf. Are you willing to go and commit that violence yourself? You're not? Okay. What are you voting for? Ken says, I buy. Mary, did you pick all of those up? A ridiculous amount. Oh, there they are. Oh, cheap lighters and strike anywhere wooden matches. Seal them up and stash them. Here we go. wrapped up in plastic wrap to keep the moisture out of it. But there we go. Yeah. Cheap lighters. Maybe they're not for me to use. Maybe I don't need them. Maybe somebody needs it. And I have the ability to go, here you go. That could be the difference between a person being able to start a fire and stay warm at night on a cold night or dying of exposure. And me having a lighter, even if it was one that just has a couple more uses left in it, I can go, here you go. Bless you. Have a good night. Maybe that's all it took. I encountered a person like that this year. They were homeless. They were looking for a light. And I just handed them a lighter and said, here you go. Most land was stolen through property taxes. Property taxes are, I wish we didn't have them. I really do. I really do. Most county operations that need to be done can be done on a volunteer basis, and where money needs to be involved, money through donations is all it takes. I mean, really. What do we need really in the way of county government? A sheriff? Maybe. That's it. And that's probably the extent of government that we need. Just a sheriff. And the sheriff can be a simply volunteer position. There's no money in it. So there's no need to have a person whose full-time job is being sheriff. It's just a burden that you take on behalf of the community periodically. Number 1, get out of debt. Get out of debt. Don't let people have that to hold over you. 2, invest in hard goods that don't lose value. 3, start growing things. A tree in the ground. The tree in the ground is going to outlive you and me and everybody else. And it's going to be productive for years and years and years. Take care of it. It'll be productive for centuries. Your children will be eating out of that tree. Your grandchildren will be eating out of that tree. Maybe not your children or grandchildren, but somebody's. You pass it on to future generations. And it's increasing in productivity as time goes on, as long as you maintain that mindset. It's borrowed from the grandchildren. Yeah, we borrow our present from our grandchildren. We borrow it from the people of the future. And that's true whether we're using money or not. Really? There is one circumstance. There's a couple of reasons to use belladonna medicinally, but know what you're doing before you mess with it. It's strong medicine. Oh, you're just joking. Okay. There are legitimate medicinal uses for belladonna. Just FYI. If you could, one of these days, do a little video on that. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it operational and stuff like that. It's one of the things I want to get into is using a distiller to actually make my own essential oils instead of having to do a steam extraction with hot water and try to skim off the essential oil from the top. Having some sort of a distiller to work with would be preferable, I would think. Evelyn says the chickens eat the spiderwort too. That's cool. I've tasted it. It doesn't taste bad. I've eaten, it's something that whenever it's tender, you can eat it fresh, just like any other fresh green. And of course, since it's perennial, it always comes back every year. You don't have to plant it every year. I love perennials for that, right? It's like, okay, it's planted. It comes back every year. If I want more of it, I just divide the roots or do whatever it is that I need to do to have more of it. And a lot of it's very simple root division. Dig it up, replant it, spread it out. I've noticed this as well. Clover is not easy to start in heavy clay or clay soil. You have to get out there and water it every dang day until it finally takes off and it gets the roots down to the point where you can start drawing up its own moisture. It takes effort to get it to take every day. Yeah, add more organic material. The clover does that too. So there's a spot that I'm working on over here on the north side where eventually we're going to have a pond there, probably about maybe an 8x12 pond. And the berm area I built up with sycamore logs to sort of build the outer edge of it. And we infilled all the spare brush and everything we have into the sycamore logs. And I pulled some of that clay up that we have an abundance of in the front yard over here. Oh, we have more clay than I thought. There's a bunch of it. Maybe 6 inches of organic matter, and then just a brick. So I've been digging that up, and I put it in there, and I put the clover on there with the idea that, okay, it's going to produce nitrogen. It's going to help accelerate the decomposition of the wood core that's inside this now raised bed area. And I've discovered, yeah, I have to water that thing every single day. But it's getting there. Eventually, it'll be nice and lush and green and healthy and all that good stuff. Sometimes you can find good deals, like Wannabe Purposes just found clover and chicory bulk seed to attract deer at my local farm supply store. At the ranch store down the road, they've got bags of cottonseed. It's too bad I can't grow cotton here on the river bottom. At least, well, I can't. But I've got a brown thumb. I'm not really great at doing stuff like growing cotton. It's a heavy feeder, and we've got more of a woodland system for gardening in here. I don't think clover or not clover. I don't think cotton would grow really well here. But yeah, I've got. Where is it? Oh, over here. I still have some left. Even after planting, I still have a few of these peanuts left. Now you got these out of birdseed bags, right? And planted them up. They sprouted, they grow, they produce peanuts. Protein, fat, oil, nitrogen fixer, ground cover. Plant this in conjunction with anything that you want to grow, as long as it's not over your septic tank. We don't grow these over the septic tank. Good for the birds, good for us too. And yeah, it came out of bird feed. So keep your eyes open. You might be able to find a source of seed that's a lot cheaper than buying one little tiny packet of a half ounce of seeds or a quarter ounce of seeds for $5. You get leaves from people that want to dispose of their leaves, either from the city. Go around, ask your neighbors, hey, do you want me to dispose of your leaves for you? Kind of a dirty trick to play on them. You should inform them that what they should really do with those leaves. But some people will just pay you to take their leaves. Katie's in the house. Hi, Katie. Oh, yeah. Sometimes people will sneak stuff into the bags that you don't want. That's interesting. So Sassafras Red's been working on his food forest property for a while now, so he's got some experience in doing these sort of things. Turnips to bust up the ground. Also things like the daikon radish and stuff like that is really good. Sometimes people just plant this radish to till the ground. It's a tillage radish. They plant it, it grows, it sends its taproot way down, and they don't harvest it. They just let it sit there, it rots, it attracts the earthworms and everything else, decomposes, breaks up the soil, works organic matter down into it, and you didn't have to disrupt everything. I like daikon radish, so I'd pull it up and eat it. I probably wouldn't eat all of them. So buckwheat is also good to shade out plants. We're growing some buckwheat too. Oh, using daikon, cheaper shade. Yeah. Okay. So the lack of frost tolerance is the reason why sassafras wasn't. He's up in Illinois. You can say heritage sugar beets can be very useful. I want to get some. I don't have any yet. But those are, sugar beets are kind of a brown skinned beet, where most of the beets that you're familiar with that come in the cans are the red ones. But these sugar beets have a brown skin. And you chop them up, stew them, filter out all the cellulose and solid material, and the syrup that's left. You cook it down, when it crystallizes, produce sugar. A lot of sugar that we're eating these days is not cane sugar, it's beet sugar. So if you're looking for someplace to get sugar beets. It's a good way to get it. Heterodoxus in northern Missouri. I spent a lot of time in southwestern Missouri when I was a kid. Ozarks. I'm a hillbilly. All right. Now, let's see if I can get to the bottom of the comments here. Oh, we got a ways to go. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of ways you can get a noise out. All right, guys. I'm gonna take a look at the last comments here, and we're gonna call it a night because we're 3 hours in, and I don't want to burn up all of my StreamYard time. Jetty Eddie says, "Good evening." Good evening. All cannas are edible. Yes, if it's Canaceae, it's edible. Don't confuse calla lily with canna lily, though. If it's got a bulb and it doesn't taste like an onion, it's not edible. Don't eat it. If it's got a tuber, that's most likely going to be okay. A tuber instead of a bulb. So look for those tubers or rhizomes as opposed to bulbs. Sassafras. Edible daily is the way to go in the Midwest. Any member of the Hemerocallis genus. Really good. We got everybody going to bed. I'm going to head off to bed too. It's 10 o'clock here. It's past my bedtime. I want to thank everybody for turning out tonight. I know we went a bit long. Well, we didn't go a bit long. We went way long. But I greatly appreciate all of you tuning in and watching. If you found this video informative, entertaining, you know what to do. But I'll tell you anyway. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel, bang the notification bell, become a channel member, preferably, one that pays $10-20 a month. That'd be good. Thank you very much for watching. I will catch you all next time.